Okay, I'm gonna say something a bit controversial, but I think people need to be massively result oriented.
Today on the pod, we will chat with the only 23-year-old high stakes cash game player and fellow GTO Wizard coach Yolan Cohen. Yolan is a world record holder in image memorization.
First time I competed, obviously I trained a lot before. I broke the world record. I broke it again in December 2021.
He then transitioned into poker, and after 2 years of messing around, he was playing already at high stakes.
And so at the first session, I'm down like 80k or something. So I'm like, oh jeez, that's not gonna be good. Second day, I bluffed way too much, and I done like probably 80 or 90k. So I was done in 2 sessions like 100,000, $70k dollars. Poker is like a language, and if you only study, you have a lot of informations, but you don't know what information to choose at the real time to perform better. And so let's say I want to learn Chinese. If I only train vocabulary, I'm not gonna speak Chinese at all.
As you mentioned, sometimes we make the same mistake 1,000 times and don't learn, and that's the most frustrating. So how do you make sure, in the poker context, that when you are making mistakes, it does become something that you learn from?
You cannot. You will do mistakes that you will do 10, 20 times before fixing. It's not binary like, I do mistakes, I fix this. And sometimes mistakes takes a lot of time to be fixed. Sometimes it's really important to wonder, is it really cooler or not, you know? Like, oh, I play, I 4-bet kings, he has aces pre-flop, cooler. Yeah, but I mean, you are big blind against early position. So the key is really to understand like, what do you remember, what you don't remember, and if what you don't remember, like it doesn't cost you any EV, you just switch to something else.
So if you do something 100% that is supposed to be done 0%, you should probably pay attention. But if you
Yes.
did something 75% that should have been done 25%, who cares? Put your energy elsewhere. You remember in the past when GG had 1K and then you had VIP games at 5K. You remember that by Before we dive into today's episode, quick announcement. We have seats open to our Mechanics of Poker coaching program. If you want to work with me and Adam and make more progress in your poker career, now is the time. Use the link in the description down below or go over to mechanicsofpoker.com for more information. But without further ado, let's get chatting with Yolan. Yolan, you have quite an interesting background story, which you mentioned, helped speed up the learning curve in poker for you. You competed in memory competitions and even have a world record in concrete images memorization. Could you maybe share some insights into the world of memory competition and how you rolled into it?
Yeah, sure. So I started back in 2021. I started a bit randomly. I wanted to find games online, but games that will be useful for me. And I discovered memory through this. At the same time, I wanted to like improve the way I was learning things. So it was like the perfect area to dive in. I trained online for probably 6 or 8 months, and I started to do live competition in October 2021. And there was one thing I was particularly good at was memorizing images. There's two categories. There is concrete images, was like it's images of something that is real, and non-concrete is called abstract images. It's images of how can you say this in English? Like absolutely how can I say this in English? It's basically like gray area that are like full fields in the it's very tough to explain actually. But whatever. I was good at concrete images, so I started competing in it. And the first time I competed, obviously I trained a lot before. I broke the world record. I broke it again in December 2021. And after I did 3 other competitions, so the competitions are live. It's in Europe, and it's under the EAM League, which is the official like memory competition league for live events in the world. And it was quite a lot of fun. Obviously started to like I would say, I was always in poker, but like going more like being more serious with the game again. So I stopped the competitions. I didn't see any any things that really bring me what I wanted, especially given the fact that I already had the codes.
Could you maybe share some more insights? How does a memory competition actually work?
Yeah, sure. So it's like in school, we all have one single table in front of us. We have one computer. And so to send us links of the competition. So it's like an online test. That's actually it's kind of the same thing. The only thing that you have is you have headphones for the sound that like can cut the sound, and also for some some um, some different disciplines. Also for disciplines, you have which called like a reducer vision. So you just put like a mask like this to focus directly on what you have on the screen. Anyway, and so we have through 1 or 2 days, we have in between like 8 and 10 disciplines. There's word, name and faces, numbers, cards, and images. So every time I was asking if it was in French, I could ask to change the schedule. So like the images are at the morning, because the problem is if the images are at the end, it's actually very difficult to be the recall. And the poorest scores I did was in Italy, 2022, and images was like really the last discipline of the day. And the problem is you're super tired because there are all the other ones. And the thing I was doing is like, let's say I'm doing a decathlon, for example, in sports. I will wait the last discipline if it's the best discipline for me. So I mean, not even competing in the other one. So I'm not cheating in a sense, but like if I'm here for the record, I don't care about competing in zone because I'm just gonna be like medium. So what's the point? We're gonna do average score. Like it doesn't. I mean, I don't like it. And so yeah, I did beat the record as I said, 2022. Did it again in December 2022, 21. And yes, sometime October 21. And the next year I tried to beat it again twice, but again was a little bit difficult because every time it was at the very end of the day. And even if you do nothing, you just spend like 9 hours on a desk. So yeah, but this is how like basically it happens. And after you collect points, or depending on the score you did in each disciplines. And after there's a ranking, and if you're first, you win something. But it's very difficult to live from this. I think it's only like 1 and 2 people, and they're not directly living from this, but more like for the communications that do around the skills.
How does your image variant differ from the other variants? Do you need like a different skill, or do you need a different training
sure.
process, different technique?
Interesting question. The image is the very different with the other one is for the other one, I need a mental palace. So I need to imagine a place, put elements into it, and try to remember them. For example, for numbers, what we do is we don't remember numbers directly. We associate each number between 0 and 999 to a specific image. And so if I see, for example, 001, I will imagine that's something that is linked to 001. And so we need to build association between every like 3 digits numbers, and after it create like a story and remember it. It's the same for cards, it's the same for words, but for images you can do this, but I arrived with a new techniques that people were not using, where I was not doing this, and I was doing this directly on the screen. So it's a little bit different because you don't lose the time to see the digits, imagine it into the mental pass. Is that actually this time of process takes like few milliseconds, but few milliseconds every time is actually a lot of time. So I like cut it out and did it on the screen, plus doing association on images. So it allowed me to be way faster and to explain a little bit more in detail what do I have to remember. So there's like images of block of 25 in with 5 row, and they're all like 600, 700, 800, whatever to remember. And so you need to remember the 5 at each row in the perfect order. And if you do mistakes, it's minus 6 point. So you can't like answer randomly, try to have points like in a school. And so I do association directly between images in each row, and the goal is to remember them. You have 5 minutes to remember the biggest amount of images possible. And after you have 15 minutes to recall, and when I did my recalls, I increased the time at 20 minutes because I didn't have enough time to recall the information. So the range, the rule changed, and now it's even higher. It's 25 minutes to recover the informations. And after you go back and you have the wall images you saw, and you need to put them in order. Yeah.
Do you have like a natural talent for that, or is it something that's trainable? And if it's something that's trainable, how does that training process look like?
Yeah, that's trainable. I definitely have an ability. I think it's impossible to beat a world record without like having one. For example, like trains. The one I trained was actually not my records. It was the walls. But the walls world records is actually super high for me. But for example, for images, when I broke the world record twice, the second time it was it was the highest record between with the difference between the second score and the first score for all categories. But there are some categories where it was impossible for me to even like be close to that. I would say. So um, you need a talent for sure if you want to break world record. But if you want to improve your memory and have this in a useful state for your whole life, then you don't need like inner talent. And the way you train this is by training the associations you do between images. So let's say I see, what could I have? Okay, let's say I have like baguette. How do you say this in English when you eat?
Sticks, chopsticks.
Oh, sticks. Yeah, good. So let's say I have sticks and I have what the fuck is this? Whatever. Something like this.
Uh huh.
So what we're gonna do? I don't know which chance people will see that by the way. What you want to do is actually to put this. Let's say I have an image of the stick, an image of pop
Noodles.
mini instant cup or whatever. What I want to do is find an association between these two so I can remember. So the natural association is easy. It's just the stick going into this. Okay, this is easy, but you need to have a very precise association between images to remember them. Why? Because after, like, let's say I see these images at the beginning and I need to recall it after in 15 minutes. How can you remember that is this and not this?
Mm.
See? So you need to have something precise. And so what we do, like the best techniques is actually to do an association with something that is close to the extremity of the object, having an action on the second object. But you really need to be careful with this type of association because when one is very easy, so let's say sticks and this is quite easy to do, you need to when you see the images again, you actually need to know that it's not this one. And so what we do is when we memorize them, even if it's super simple, you actually take a little bit more time to remember that it's not the opposite. And if it's the opposite, again, you need to take a little bit more time simply because if I don't take too much time to remember that, when I will see this, my brain will naturally think that the association is this. And so you do this for every images. Sometimes you have like abstract images. For example, you have like a number, a letter. It can be even only a color sometimes. But the idea is the same. It's just you do association between um, two images. And because there are 5 images in the row, you only need to do 2 per row. Simply because if you remember 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5 will be the 5. You don't need to remember it basically. Yep. And the recall I did was 547. And it was beat 2 times. So I'm third, but not first, unfortunately.
That's quite a lot of images. This definitely a sport that's being taken seriously. You even got coaching by, let me see, Andrea Musi, I think you called, who
Yep.
is also a world memory champion. What was what were some of the valuable lessons that he taught you in his coaching, and how did it help you?
Okay.
Maybe also,
Yep.
I'm also curious
Yeah,
in
maybe
terms
a
of the transition to poker as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, completely. So it's funny because we did trading for like both of us. Obviously, he's the best at every disciplines except me, the mind disciplines. So like I was like teaching him a little bit my techniques, and he teach me the techniques he used for the other disciplines. And so what we do is just that so the variable lessons for me outside the memory world is that you can't memorize when like your thoughts are not well organized. It's the most important thing. And I see too many players, for example, in poker, like they do like GTO Wizard, and after they do end reviews. But like all the things you are doing, you're not even noting them. So your brain is not going to remember them. And so taking notes is very, very important. And even if you don't remember the notes, studies show that it's better to take notes, just to write things down, basically. So being well organized, taking notes, and also trying to find elements you can associate with what you're learning, which is a bit more difficult in poker, I'm not gonna lie. Like if you see a simulation on Wizard, like it's a bit tough to. You have techniques obviously, but for like neophyte in the memory world, it's a bit more complicated. But just organized and also not doing too much is very important in memory. That's why like it's like sports training actually. Like 1 week before the competition, we don't train because otherwise it's too much element to our brain. Um, and just don't do too much. Just think it's the main thing I would say.
When you say don't do too much, you mean that you shouldn't study for 8 hours in a row, or
Yeah, exactly. Basically, the best is to study for like super short period of time. And now 15-20 minutes is better. Obviously, studies show that like 40 minutes might be better, 35 minutes might be better. But it was studies like kind of before the social network area. So I will tend to advise to people to do a little bit less because in average the attention of someone's decreased in the past years. Yeah. So I say
in the
20 minutes, 10-minute breaks, 20 minutes, 20-minute breaks. Tell me.
is that the Pomodoro they call that? Is that technique? I think
Yeah,
that's something like
you
you
can call
study,
it,
then you break. Isn't it something similar?
I think Pomodoro is 40 minutes or something.
Yeah, but something similar, right? You do short period.
Yeah, something similar.
Break. Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
so you mentioned that organizing your thoughts is very important. You mentioned taking
Yeah.
notes. Any tips on how to effectively take notes? You know, for our listeners now in the podcast, everyone is getting their notepads out, all this wisdom dropped. You know, they're like, "Oh, I should take notes now while listening to this podcast."
So effective notes, the start is to be organized. So you can take a map or like do it like manually. But the notes of something that you do needs to be with the notes of the same thing you are doing. So let's say I study like 3-bit pots. If I take a notes on my computer and also note on my phone, there's a note when I write, it's not organized because all the notes are not in the same place. If the notes are in the same place and they are organized in pots, different thoughts in different categories, it will be way easier for me to visualize everything I want to learn. So the best is to do mind map. It's not ideal, like so better like way to learn, but I would say it captures 90% of the EV. So I would recommend people to, I mean, we'll talk about it further in detail anyway, but to do maps online, so they can take notes and organize better the ways they are learning. Yeah. And then also when you want to like do reminder of the informations you want to remember, it's going to be way more effective this way because your brain is directly going to visualize everything. Yeah. And we will finish on that. We are way better to visualize spaces, places, simply because really back in the days, like millions years ago or something, maybe less, we needed to know like where's the water, where's the food, where's my tribute. And so we have this memory that is way, way, way more developed than like the world's memory, than the main faces memory, because names arrived later, words arrived later. Images not that much. So that's why, let's say in 5 minutes, the number of words memorized, the word we call I think 150, and images now is more over 600.
Oh wow.
So yeah, it's actually way easier for the brain to memorize images. Um,
It's interesting, yeah, because like also what you said, I would imagine that, oh yeah, you have a super brain, so you can just study for multiple hours. But what you're kind of saying is through your experience with memory training, you learned kind of the limitations of the brain and how to work around it. Any other like limitations or hacks that you know about the brain that you apply to studying poker or even playing poker?
yeah. I have something, but it's difficultly teachable. Is I have a better eidetic memory. I think memory is the memory of like seeing something for a few seconds and remember it. You can't improve this. It's very, very difficult. If you with a lot of training you can, but it's not something natural, and it helps me because let's say I work on spots on in GTO Wizard. If I see the sim 6 months, 1 year later, I will remember it 95% of the time. So I don't remember exactly the percentage, but if I look specifically for information, so what my hand is doing in the spot, for example, I will remember. And what I can advise to people is to at least improve this, simplify the process, and put only you can do this in Wizard, put only frequencies at 25, 50, 75. So like it's way easier for your brain to remember like what your hand needs to do. Um yep. So simplify this. Don't try to remember exact numbers. It's not useful. And just like take notes. Like a lot of people think that people have a good memories, they memorize everything without like note takings, but that's not true. It's like saying someone's doing basketball is just good and not training. You just need to separate what things are important to notes, what things are not really important to notes. And definitely like the numbers, the frequencies are not very useful, I would say.
Actually, this is something that I think I already did. Like the way I read solver outputs is if something is always done, 100%, 0%, it's like, okay, well, this is probably very high in EV. So probably, these hands that have a clear action. But then when there's a frequency, I just see it as this can go either way. And then basically for me, that's more of a sign of like, okay, well, this can go either way. Then I reestimate the situation in game. Well, which way do I want to go? And then if I
Yeah.
really, really don't know, then, or I see benefits in both lines, I don't really have a preference, I'll roll the 50-50, but I'll never go to 10%, 80%,
Yeah.
70%.
And also something important is, for example, in the memory competition, every mistake is minus 6 points. But in poker, sometimes you do mistakes and you don't care because it doesn't cost you that much EV. So the key is really to understand like what do you remember, what you don't remember. And if what you don't remember, like it doesn't cost you any EV, you just switch to something else. The way I teach people for live games to learn ranges is to train the ranges on the software, see like what mistakes they're doing, so you'll directly have the EV loss. And if the EV loss, because they like failed to remember 2 or 3 combos is minimum, you just don't remember it. Because you don't need to be perfect. You just need to capture the highest amount of EV. And that's why it's very important to link the things you memorize to the effectiveness you have in the memory process.
Again, it takes in consideration sort of the limitations of the brain. So if you do something 100% that is supposed to be done 0%, you should probably pay attention. But if you
Yes.
did something 75% that should have been done 25%, who cares? Put your energy elsewhere. What you were describing that's kind of photographic memory, right? We sometimes hear around. Is that kind of what you were describing with I see the solver and I have a photographic memory?
Yeah. Yeah, it's this I think it developed when I was young, and it was a part that was more like um since I'm born. The reason why is because my parents didn't let me too much screens when I was young. So it let me with my imaginations, and I was like often in my head because I was like a little bit shy when I was young. So I think it developed this type of memory because you build more memories and you remember them better. And for example, I know since I do memory competition, it was the case before, but now I can remember every dream I have at night. For example, I need to note them fast, otherwise I will forget in the day. But typically something we can do also. I can do. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I've heard something about that. Like that, if you train, you can actually just remember. People then draw out their dreams or something like that. I
I
believe.
think I need to draw out. I'm not the best in this area, to be honest. Just it's fun to like draw and after think it again. But I think you can really remember them well if you like note them every day and really like make the thoughts as soon as you wake up to remember them.
Oh, that's some freaky comic. I mean, if I talk about my dreams, this is the most random shit.
Yeah.
Next to a memory competition, do you have any other history in being competitive outside of poker?
Yeah, I did handball for 12 years. I competed. The best I did was third division when I was 16. So I wanted to like be on the path to turn pros, but I got some injury in my wrist, so I couldn't do it anymore. And also at the same time discovered poker, and I understood that handball was nice, but to be honest, not very the best practice because it's difficult. You don't win that much, and in order to win like a lot for the standard of our society, you really need to be very strong, and definitely not at this level. So obviously, I could have competed in the second division, first division, but never be in the French team, like by far. And didn't want to be in this stage, so I kind of left basically. And also the problem is when you're very young and you're like playing third division. Yeah, I played third division. Though. I was like training. I was not even playing because like, I was either not selected or when you play, you just play 0 minutes. So I mean, it's very difficult when you're young. You need to be very good in order to play the games at the
Any
matches
uh
at the video.
any wisdom or any lessons that you picked up that you brought with you into poker from either
Mm.
competing in memory or competing in handball?
I think disciplines. Like you need to be at the training at the exact same times every week. That helped me a lot. Um, I think also like evolving as a team. Unfortunately, I kind of lost that with poker, but I now start to realize it was really important to have people that have the same mindset, same goals of you. And I didn't have that when I started, and it was actually a mistake. And yeah, also be coached because obviously, if we are all coming at the trainings, there's not the coach. Like what do we do? We will train, but not in the best effective way. In poker, it's kind of the same. And obviously, like nobody is perfect, but at least having someone that understands what you're coming from and where you want to go is for me very, very important. Probably the biggest mistakes I did in my career is not to take a coach before because I took one, but 3 years after I started. So I didn't have a coach for like the process about what I'm going to learn, what I want to do. And there were too many things that I was training that was actually not important. And if one guy would have told me, no, no, this is not really important, you should do this, or just the way you play, like you should focus more about maximizing your EV, not playing balance, especially when you play very small stakes, would have helped me way better.
So when you started out, you didn't get a coach straight away. Maybe we can get into how you started out in your poker career and kind of what first attracted you to the game.
Yeah, sure. So I started at my hand of 15th. I was in an event where there was like some families and some friends, and I saw my little cousins playing with the. I mean, I laugh. It's not funny, but the credit card of his mother on Winamax, and he showed me poker. He was playing cash game. I think 10 or something. I don't really exactly remember. And so I remember I was playing poker when I was like 13 years old. We are playing with my friends once a week, between 2 hours of school. And we were betting like €2. So I was already playing sit and goes when I was like I was very young. But I didn't like I just played the game. I was not really interested. I mean, you can't be really interested in 13 playing poker, and it was always very weird. But and so I saw him playing poker, and I remembered that you can like play for a living, and yeah, I found it very interesting because it was at a time where I didn't really know what I want to do. I always hated school, and so yeah. As soon as I saw that he was doing this, I saw some YouTube videos. I watched some like UVR's video, back in the days. And and yeah, after the second day, I was already training this 8 hours a day directly. Yeah,
You're training poker eight hours a day.
yeah. But obviously, was doing it really bad.
I was gonna play. How does it look like 8 hours a day of poker training?
Yeah, I was doing completely. That's why I said I need the coach. Like I was doing spots, and in these spots, I was just asking myself, okay, how much combos do you have in these spots? Who cares? Why do I train this? Yeah, and I was like reviewing situations. I tried to see on forums the analysis of iStex players. But the problem also I did is I was just like one day in poker, like I was not understanding 90% of what the guy was saying. But I still wanted to like try to learn, okay, what will I say in these spots? But it was way too advanced for me. But sometimes when you start, like you want to like do more advanced stuff at the beginning. This is normal. We like complexity as humans. But yeah, and after I did directly take a membership for French like video platforms and just like watched videos. That's the main thing I did when I was training. Actually, was watching videos after obviously I upgraded to Renaissance back in the days where it was really good. Like 2018, I think. Yeah, 2017, 2018, and I started to watch them on ringtones. It was really difficult at the beginning because my English level was very low, so I was not understanding half of it. But after you train and the understanding you have gets better. So yeah.
When did you start to get like your first hands in, and that you were like, hey, this is actually starting to look like something?
Yeah. So I didn't play. I played like very few ends, but less than 1,000. I didn't play for 2 years and a half. Where during between my 15s and my 18s, I was not playing a single hand. And the reason why is because I really wanted to improve faster than other people. And the way I can do this was the thing I thought about was I need to take shortcuts. And the best way for me to take shortcuts is not playing. And the reason why is because in handball, for example, if you play without training, you're just going to be bad. And I didn't want to be bad, especially because if you're bad at poker, you lose money. And I didn't have any money. So I didn't want it to lose the, the small amount of money I had. So I started thinking that probably the best way was like not playing and only accumulating theoretical understanding of the game and also like how to play each sports, for example. And it was actually mistakes. Like you need to train, obviously, and you need to play because if you don't play, you can't execute what you learned. So when I first played, I was thinking that I'm gonna be the best directly I can will turn pros, but I lost at 50 NL after 2 years and a half. So I was like, how can it be possible? Like I had some friends who were winning in they're playing ABI 10 in MTTs, average buy-in 10s, and I was like, how can I not win? And it was very difficult at the beginning because I got like 800 on like random accounts and so I switched them to poker sites without my parents knowing. So I got like 800 and I started playing 50 ML. So already a very good bankroll management, and yeah, and I was losing. I was not even understanding why. So it was very difficult this time. Because when you invest so much time into something and you have nothing in return, it's very hard for the brain and poker is kind of the only discipline where you can put a lot of work and sometimes it can't work. It doesn't work for like a few period of times. And I didn't really understand like how tough mentally poker can be sometimes. And yeah, I was simply not winning. And I started to to go down in stakes. And yeah, I was winning at 10 and L. But for all the efforts I did and all the hours invested, it was a lot. So obviously at the very beginning was 8, but after it was not 8 hours because I got the school, I school work and stuff to do. But I was waking up earlier in school, and when I was coming back from school, I was only doing poker, literally always. And one funny fact is when I was the last years of my school, I didn't go out one single time, really one single time. So even at the end with everybody, I was just training poker because I was like, if let's say 4 years after, I say to myself like, I hang out, I will not succeed actually in poker, and that was like very dumb idea actually because I mean you can just do both. You don't need to do sacrifices, but we'll talk about it a little bit later, I'm sure. So yeah, and after the thing that changed is that I got contacted by a guy named Leo, French guy, and he saw my comments on ringtones because I was commenting videos a lot, and he said, "Oh, okay, let's work together. I play NL 1K." So I said, "Yeah, I play 1K also, but you need to remove 2-0, you know." Yeah, I played 10 and I played 10 also, but 10 is not the blind anyway. And so I said to him that like I wasn't like I didn't even have 1,000 to play. And he told me, "Oh, okay, your thing is interesting for your limit. Maybe I can stack you." And so we started to discuss. He did a test where like he put me. Gave me some money to play in L100 in front of him. So I remember I was playing. I think I was never like as stressed to play a session of my life. I remember because my hand were sweating so much. Sometimes the mouse were like very difficult to control. Yeah, it was super funny. But actually, he decided to go for it. So where we are in 2020, at the end of the lockdown, and so I started playing in the 100. And what changed a lot is this guy teach me that the most important is thinking about the EV of your exact hand, and it really it's an advice was really important for me. Probably the best advice I had is really to think about the EV of your hand. Why? Because the problem of thinking about only about what's in theory my hand is doing is you don't construct any neuronal neuronal links of thinking. So you're just going to say, "Oh, I recognize the situation, so I'm going to do this." But there's nothing from your brain that comes from natural thinking, from the real thinking. You're just associating, okay, these spots with another spots, and so you're playing like this. But if you don't ask yourself, okay, what my hands really want to do, and like how can I exploit my opponents, you're never going to create this reflection and these habits of thinking about what's the best move. And if you don't do, so then if I ask you, okay, how to exploit people in these spots, you can't answer because you never trained it. And so he teach me that it was really theory was always really important, and I will never say the opposite. But you need to understand like what can be the best, and if you do the steps to like consistently think about this and actively thinking on the long run, it makes a huge difference. Yeah.
So it sounded like you're trying to apply your association technique from memory onto poker. And from what I understood, you were just grinding the soul for 2.5 years trying to memorize everything. And then when you put it into practice, you were like, hey, this is not this is not working.
Yeah. Exactly. That was simply not working because, like, I was thinking I was actually good, but I got a lot of leaked even in theory. And I was playing. I was playing what I think was GTO against fishes. Fuck. I don't even remember why I was doing this.
So how would you recommend, if you could now start over, how would you do it if you could now start over?
Okay. So first thing, I take a coach. It's the first thing, like day one. I take a coach to like someone that is good in memorization, so I know like what thing I need to see, what thing I need to train. Um, okay, and I will like start to like train the basics of the game, and also organize the working elements with things that matter the most at first. Don't start training. I remember like the first year I was training forward pots. I was not even. I didn't even know how to play blue against big blind. I'm training forward pots. What the fuck?
Big pot,
And so
man,
it's
big
really
pots, a lot of money.
why? Yeah, exactly. I was saying I was big pots I need to train. Like it's very important to understand that it's you need to focus the most on the efficiency of your study. And if something happens way more than another thing and it brings more EV, just train this all the time and like just don't train the other one. So I will train the first thing is I will train the theory of the sports that happen the most. I will understand every theoretical concepts, and after I will start directly learning about the exploit part. I would say.
And play, right? Because that's something that we were
Play, obviously, you
were
will also
building,
need
yeah.
to play to train it. Like not playing was a mistake. Actually, I would have improved more by playing. Well, yeah.
You mentioned you would straight away reach out to a coach, just like I guess you did in memory and what you were used to
Yeah.
in handball, right? If you do a sport in general, there's always a coach. I think in poker, that's like
I
one of
really don't understand. Yeah, why in poker there is this? I think it's because it's maybe an ego game, so people think they can like be better with themselves. And yeah, sometimes people are proud. Oh, I never been coached. Yeah, and I'm playing 500 L, whatever. Yeah, but if you were coached, you will play probably higher, man. So like, it's not something to brag much.
and sooner.
And yeah, in every aspect, like if you play chess, I play a little bit backgammon. Stays backgammon. You need a coach, otherwise you're just going to get stuck. In poker, it's kind of the same. You will just improve your result faster. So
How
there's no
to
like, yeah.
how to find a good coach? What do you look for in a coach that you're like, hey, yeah,
Mm,
that seems like a good coach.
I think as coaches, I mean, coaching is humans interaction. I'll choose the humans I like to interact with. It's the first thing. If I don't like the guy in front of me, or he's very, very, very boring when he's speaking, I'll probably not choose him because the retention of the information he tells me are going to be less great. So let's say two people are teaching you something. One is a complete stranger. One is someone you know, like your father, your mother, etc. In the second case, you will remember things better because the retention of informations are better. Um, that's the first thing. Um, the can you tell me the exact question again to be sure?
No, yeah, what to look for, but I think you already mentioned that. How do you get the most out of a coaching session? I know you've done coaching, you've got coaching. How do you get the most out of a coaching session?
What I was doing when I was watching Rayton's videos is that I was taking the three most important thing of the video I learned, and that will bring me the highest EV. And it's very important to do this all the time because obviously sometimes I'm gonna do 1 hour. A lot of things going to be very interesting, but realistically, I'm not going to remember any of this in 6 months, and I'm only going to remember this if I study them again, study the hour again, or like see the things I saw in the study hour again. But if I saw really elements that are really important or elements that I didn't know, then I will note them and let them specifically somewhere I know that I can have all the informations of things I didn't really know, and I will now teach it. I will now remember it better and also review it. So the most important is to take notes, things either that you don't know, things that you know you can improve a lot in your game, or things that like can bring you a lot of EV. So let's say I have an information that like, okay, I need to play this way. I was not playing this way at all. I'm doing a lot of mistakes. Then I'm going to take this note. If there is like one spot that happens really a lot, so the EV of this spot is going to be higher in average to work on. Even if the EV difference between what I'm currently doing and what I can do is small, I will also take this into consideration. And you always need to adapt with this element. And if something I didn't know, like I will note this also.
It's interesting again. Like, so I'm sure people listening and me for myself as well. Like often I kind of fall into the trap that I know too much, and then in the end you try to memorize everything, but in the end you learn nothing. Whereas if you just like, okay, all pretty cool, but let's prioritize. This is what I want to remember. Or this is like the main takeaway that I will go and apply tomorrow, instead of trying to learn everything. A lot of good stuff. Adam, how's your memory?
After this conversation, I'm thinking I need an upgrade to start training it. Yeah, super interesting. Like, I'm really fascinated by this area because we're all trying to learn stuff and remember that information. And most of us don't have the right techniques to take in the information we're learning, but to actually remember it when we need it. So, yeah, I'm curious to ask you more questions on this because I wrote down kind of the key steps which I picked up from you there, which were organizing information in terms of what's most important. Some form of simplifying. You mentioned like just there, like three most important points of a long topic or an area. You mentioned association, which is what you're trained at, and then maybe create some sort of visualization, like a mind map of that. So I'm thinking like for the listener and myself who's trying to learn a lot of things, how do you then practically go about condensing that information, but also making it so you can bring it up later? Like, is there some element of revisiting that information, like the spaced repetition? Do you have some procedure to, yeah, to solidify these notes you're taking and to make them stick in your memory?
So I think there are like few most important elements. The first one is like you said, simplification. I didn't even think about it because it was I was doing it naturally. But yeah, you need to simplify the things you learn. It's the most important. And I see too many players that take notes, but the notes are like super long. Like think about your brain when you need to rememorize things. If you have like a very condensed, like a lot of sentence, it's not really good for the brain. So like just be the most condensed possible and organize the notes in the way that like they are with the other notes, and it's very easy to see the other one. If let's say I take manual notes, not the best, I mean it's okay, but not the best. Okay, the first note I'm taking is on another page, and the other note is on another page on the other note. So the notes are not connected. If it's not connected on the paper, it's not going to be connected on your brain. Obviously, you can, but it's going to take more time. So you want to do a map, which again is not the most optimal, but still very, very good for the learning process. And you just put the notes in the same map that has the same subject, and you organize them, as you said. You organize them first. After you really divide information by the core of the information, so you don't have too many things to remember. And you simplify state. And after, for the space repetition, y- the best obviously is to do it like all the time, as use apps like Anki. But I don't like to say like, okay, you need to have to do this, have Anki, because I'm not doing it myself because it's too boring. And when you learn something, something very important is it needs to be, there's like an equation. It's like enjoyable amount multiplied by effectiveness. And if I have something that is very effective, but I really, really, really don't like to do, I'm never going to do it in the long run. So there's no point. And that's why, like, obviously, and a lot of people say, "Oh, you need Anki." Yeah, in the perfect world, I need Anki 10 hours a day, but I'm never gonna do it. It's too boring. Like, I just don't like it. And let's say, for example, videos. Videos are very great. Not the best way to learn, obviously, but very great. Simply because I really enjoy watching videos, and so if I enjoy doing videos, if I enjoy watching watching videos, I'm going to remember them better simply because I enjoy more the process, and so I can do it more in the long run. So it's very important not to focus only about how effective something I learn is, or the tool I'm using, but how do I like to use it. For example, um, one of the best will be GTO Wizard. I'm not saying this because I'm a coach of Wizard, but I like being on Wizard. I like using it, and it is very effective. So, and you need to select things that like have the highest ratio between those two. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very important as well to remember make learning fun. And I'm sure we all relate to that when we enjoy what we're learning. It just sticks. We spend more time on it. Then there's other things that for some reason there's resistance to learning it. And we kind of make ourselves do it through willpower. And we really struggle. We're like, oh, this is just not sticking. So trying to find a way to engage with what you're learning from a curiosity, from an enjoyment, and maybe not pushing it too far to the extreme. If you're not enjoying that or you hate doing that,
Exactly.
it's probably the warning sign to pivot into something else. So yeah, I'm really curious to dive in a little bit to why you feel that studying poker and not playing isn't effective. As you mentioned, for other things, it works really well. It works well for memory championships. It works well for sports. If you double down on training, performance becomes a byproduct of the work you do. But for
Mm.
poker, it seems like the element of training and performance, they don't correlate as well. If you just study poker, you're not going to become a good poker player, like because you won't be able
Yeah.
to perform. So why do you feel like in poker particularly there's a performance gap between the learning knowledge and training and not executing that knowledge?
Hmm. I think it's because poker, and it's coming from it's coming from someone I coached. She told me this, and it's actually very true. Poker is like a language. So if you only train, let's say, English, and you start talking in English, English is too vast a language to start speaking it directly. Obviously, you're going to be better than someone not training, but it's too big actually. And poker is the same. It's too much area that needs to be practiced in the game and to actually perform better. And if you only study, the problem is you have a lot of informations, but you don't know what information to choose at the real time to perform better. And so let's say I want to learn Chinese. If I only train vocabulary, I'm not gonna speak Chinese at all. Like because the time it will take to find the vocabulary in the other word and the other one is gonna be too much. So yeah, it sounds I will speak Chinese, but my sentence will be 30 seconds too long. So it's not really Chinese. And in poker, for me, it's the same. So that's the area of the game is way too big. So when you start to train each sections, if you don't remember instantly the vocabulary you learned, then you're not going to play directly well. That's for me the main difference, main thing. Yeah.
Yeah, as you mentioned there as well, it's like the linking of ideas together, but also like trying to figure out what actually is needed and what's not. like stripping away all that extra stuff and trying to figure out actually what leads to performance. Yeah, as you mentioned, the language is a really good example of that because I've never learned a new language, but from people who I speak to who have, they see like being in the country that speaks that language and just conversing is just like 10x the kind of learning curve
Exactly.
compared to
Mm.
trying to learn it. So yeah, that's a really, really good example.
And
All
also
right.
something I will add is studies show that we learn better with humans than computers. And that's why, like for example, in school, it's better to have a teacher than having a bot. From to some extent, obviously. Yeah, and that's why it's important to for me have a coach and train with a human, especially because it will faster the process. And the one thing we mentioned is we can't only train at poker, but it's very true when we say we can't only train one thing at poker. Like if you do only one thing too much, like too much solvers, too much exploits, too much whatever, it's not gonna work because the eye is too complex. The poker is too big. And it's the same thing with the vocabulary. If you only train vocabulary for language, you're not going to speak the language. You need to understanding it, speak it, and yeah, poker is kind of the same in this way.
You said we learn better from humans than we do from computers, which I think is very interesting to note as we move into this AI world of chatbots and learning more and more from computers. So yeah, I want to pull on that thread a little bit, but I also want to come back to your story and kind of linking things together. So you're chatting to Rene about learning memory and then also getting into poker. Did these two journeys overlap? Did you start poker first, or when did you become the
Oh, I
learning
start
memory?
I start poker like way earlier than when I dive into the memory. I dive into memory first time when I had my final exam at high school because I didn't really want it to work for that. So I type on internet like memory techniques for like learning. And so I first like trained it. I kind of like it, and after the exams, I focused mainly on poker. But 1 year, not even not 1 year, like 6 months after I came back because I was saying to myself, oh, I want to do something else than poker, but like for really few hours a day, few hours a week, and I wanted something that was useful for poker. And so I started to like train again online, and yeah, train multiple hours a day, and it was fun doing it. And it needs to be fun because if I was doing it and I didn't enjoy it, I would have done it 3 days. So I was selecting the things I wanted to train and the things I liked to train. So emojis, names, words, my favorite categories, and the categories I hate the most are like when you have to remember like infinite amount of informations. Like, for example, when you associate each digits with with an images, you need to do it for 1,000 times, and you need to do it very fast. So it takes like 40, 50 hours. So I did it once and I really hated it. Yeah, I prefer to do like words, badges. It's funnier. I would say.
So early in your pot career, you mentioned to Rene you were approaching it wrong in terms of training the wrong things, focusing on the wrong areas. I think you mentioned that you were kind of break even slash losing your first few years of playing. You were making progress. I'm curious to know for you, first of all, how did you get through this period? But also, what were some of the internal self doubts, inner narratives that you experienced at this time? Because I'm sure, having come from the world of memory, you've already like solidified, I'm a smart guy, I can learn things quickly, but things didn't click quickly for poker. So how were you navigating that?
That was very difficult. Like I remember I was really sad. Like I invested so much time and I didn't have any success. So I started feeling some period where I was not very confident in myself, and because of that, mainly because of that, I said, yeah, just made me sad. It was really not the best time for me, and but I just say to myself like I need to go through the whole process, otherwise I will have some regret. And I had one coach at Humble who was saying, if you really train 100%, you can't have regret because you did everything you could to make it work. And so I kind of had this philosophy where I was saying to myself, okay, let's take a few months, and if it was not working, I will do something else. But I was kind of committed because I really didn't want to do something more classic because I didn't find anything that I really liked. So it's not trap, but I was very incentivized to succeed, I would say, because I didn't really want to do the other things, as I said. Um, And yeah, and so mentally, I think I just use resilience. I don't think there was like effective way to like really feel better in the situation because I have pain. It's normal. It's like if I put my hand into the heaven, I mean, it's gonna hurt. I can use all the techniques in the world. Yeah, maybe with some techniques I can feel it's less, but it still hurts. And in poker, sometimes for me it's the same as my perception when I get through my downswings. Um, I was just not feeling good, and the best way is just to accept it and go. Obviously, you can trade, change your perception, and I got some coaching that was really useful. But at the end, yeah, I think just resilience is really one very important thing to have. And I didn't understand back in the days that it was normal that poker took so much time, and I think I got my ego was a bit too high, thinking that like I can be like the best in 2 or 3 years. No, it takes higher. And sometimes it can even take more times to start winning. And doesn't mean you're dumb, doesn't mean you're not going to be good. Just that poker is very big and sometimes doesn't work at the beginning. And yeah, but sometimes also you don't put enough work into it. Can be this also. I will not say I didn't put enough work. Obviously, you can always do better. But I think if did really way more, it will not be very effective. Yeah.
You said something very important where you need to build your resilience. And I think this is a very key part of it where when things get tough, sometimes it sucks. Like sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it doesn't feel good in the moment. And if you're struggling, it just means this is a time to build that resilient muscle sort of thing. And I think this is something we can't learn in theory. We need to go through tough times to build it. And I think what I liked about your story there is you just accepted that. You went, all right, this does suck. This doesn't feel great, but I need to get through this. I think the mindset of I need to find a way to go overcome this. This is going to be a good thing for me. Building character, building that kind of resolve to not quit. I don't know how exactly I'm going to get out of it. I'm trying to problem solve it every day. But yeah, this just sucks for this period, but keep going. I think that resilience is a key attribute. And a lot of people who struggle with downswings, struggle with adversity, haven't built that resilience. They just get knocked down and they just overreact, freak out. So for you, have you always been quite a resilient person, or is it something you've developed through poker or before that?
Honestly, not very much. I would say like the biggest leak I have in poker is probably like mental game. I'm very just not good at it. I trained a lot, but it's just not my like main strength. But I mean, we'll talk about it later probably. I think I was committed in succeeding in it. Like I didn't have any choices. So I was like skinning the games, and so I was like at 100% because I couldn't lose. What I would do? Like too many things I was not liking to do. So I think you can develop resilience because you are very attracted to do something, but otherwise way more motivated not to do something else than poker. I would say I like poker. Obviously, I love this game and still love it, but I was really motivated not to do anything else. And I think it's what can really help you develop this resilience is when you have this external motivation coming in. And for example, I mean, it's classic stuff. But if I say to someone, "Okay, you need to do $100,000 this month," he will say me, "I can do this." And if you say, "Okay, we will kill your whole family if you don't," maybe he will not do it. But there's way more chance he's going to do it because he has more incentives, basically. And I think resilience is coming with incentives because I can say, "Oh, in my competition, I was not resilient enough to be number one." Probably I could, but I didn't have any motivations for this. Didn't have any incentives. Didn't have any things that were really important for me to do this. So I didn't have any resilience. So for me, both are feelings. Yeah. What do you think?
Agree. Yeah, I think resilience, you need a reason to push through because basically what's happening is the short term gets a little bit tough and the mind and body are like, is this worth it? And you need that to be able to answer that question with yes, on the other side of this pain, there is something meaningful for me. If you've got a strong meaning for it, you're like, yeah, suck it up, ready for it. If you don't have that, it's like be resilient for resilience sake. It's like, no, thank you. Go, put your hand into that hot water and let it burn. It's like, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah.
I'll avoid that. So we have a natural inclination to avoid what's hard and what feels like could be risky. So yeah, I think we need something to pull us the opposite way to override that. And just knowing that process of kind of slaying the dragon, overriding the hard obstacle, is that building of that resilience. I do think of resilience as a muscle. I think it's getting stronger the more you put it under pressure and strain and challenge. If I look at resilient people, like David Goggins always comes to mind, it's like you don't get resilient without adversity, without real tough stuff you go through to make you resilient. So for me, I lean into that when I'm going through tough times, going, oh, awesome, resilient chapter. This is my building my resilient muscle. Let's get to work. Feels like shit half the time, but at least you're realizing it's for a bigger goal that you're working towards. Now you mentioned, which I really want to dive into now, that you had like almost like no plan B, and that you're going to make it work no matter what. This can also lead to the opposite side of the spectrum where you overdo stuff, where you work too hard. I think for you, you ran into this obstacle as well, where you were playing poker maybe like 16 hours a day, and it led to a bit of burnout. So maybe we could talk about when you overdo things, just that need to want to be successful. I think a lot of young people have this where they're so eager to get ahead. They're so eager to achieve their goals. They're like, forget sleep. I'm going to work every single hour, every moment. And that enthusiasm comes from a good place, but it can be misapplied. So for you, how did you experience that effort that you're putting in, but maybe overdoing it at times?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like the 16 hours a day. I see it more like a Almorsy thing. Do you know Almorsy?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think I think this approach is very, very bad because it's good for like a very specific amount of people. And the problem I had is I saw too many videos where people saying, okay, you need to work all the time. But what happened? I did sacrifices. I did even sacrifices I regret because, let's say in high school, in high school I didn't hang out with friends one single time. And obviously, when you don't have friends and you like try to learn things, um, it's tougher because you don't have this social link that you should have. And so you're not fulfilled fully. And so you don't, it's not even productive. And for example, I said often to myself, was a big mistake, that like, okay, I don't care about girls, I'll focus about that later. But why later? Like, just live your life right now. And I did too many sacrifices that was really not needed. I think sacrifice is the biggest bullshit I heard for learning things. No, you can hang out with people, you can do whatever you want. It's not because you work hard that you're going to succeed. Obviously, working hard increases your chance, but it doesn't mean you're going to succeed because you train like 2 or 3 hours a day more. And even if it maximizes your EV, I prefer to maximize now my EV happiness. And yeah, I kind of work more on the things I'm doing right now for sure, and I would even have more results. But I don't want to do the same mistakes from like I'm like okay, I didn't focus enough on like having really good relationship, and I saw that this could really affect just my day-to-day work because obviously some after you start developing regrets you're like okay, but I worked too much on this game, I could have done like a little bit less efforts and focus, for example, on having a girlfriend, for example, or like just having better relation with your family and stuff. And so yeah, I think what I can advise to people is just like sacrifice is a very big bullshit things. I think even hard work, especially coming from like a memory stuff, I know that smart work is way better than hard work. And if you put every X6 players and we need to learn something, like I will know probably better how to learn the new thing. And so I'm gonna work probably not maybe not the less, but like average, but I'm gonna have better results. And I think it's way better to learn this how to work way smarter and stop with the like hard work bullshit stuff. I think it's very bad, especially when you're young because it kills your health on the long run. And if you put two people, one is like having a balanced life, working less, one is working 16 hours a day. Yeah, the second guy can like have better results, but he can also die at 40 years old. So what's the point? Jeremy?
Yeah, there's an interesting kind of split in the culture at the moment where some people promote like this work ethic of completely grind yourself into the ground, sacrificing everything to get ahead. Then there's other cultures like ourselves who like to get more balance and get that kind of life optimized as well. However, often people like us and like, we've been through a period of working very intensely, and it's almost a bit of a survivorship bias. And maybe we work super intensely to initially get ahead, and then we can ease off. So I'm curious to know from your perspective, do you feel like you need some periods of obsessiveness where you almost like push things too far before you can kind of recalibrate and get that balance? Or do you feel like, as you mentioned, it's better just not to make sacrifices to begin with and find that kind of sweet spot?
It's in between. Like I can't say like don't do sacrifices when I did and I saw that it was useful in a sense. But if I do the same things without sacrifices, I will of course do the same results because we said, okay, I will sacrifice this
Yeah, but like sometime I was not playing poker. I was watching videos on YouTube, so I could have like trained relationships, for example. You told me um, if you need this obsession with the things you are doing in order to succeed. I think you need to love what you are doing, so you are obsessed with what you are doing. But if you're obsessed with something and you don't like it, and you don't like the fact that you're like 100% into this game, it's not gonna work. When I said I was doing sacrifices, I was not like having pain saying, "Oh no, I need to train my poker until late." No, I was actually loving it. I didn't never see him. I never see things as like you need to push yourself because I think it's very counterproductive. And the way we learn, the way like a human works, is he's going to be more attracted to the things he enjoy doing. Obviously, it's a balance. You can't only doing things you enjoy, otherwise you're just like fat and not moving and watching movies all the day. So we need to have this kind of balance, obviously. But I think the obsession is coming through enjoyment and it should not be the opposite, I think. Because if you enjoy something and you don't want to commit to it too much and you force yourself, it's gonna kill the enjoyment you have for the thing you're currently learning or you want to be good at. Mm.
Yeah, which then leads to like an interesting sweet spot where is it really a sacrifice? Like, is it a sacrifice if you enjoy doing the things you're doing? So if you're working hard, but you're loving it and you're having fun, what are you really sacrificing? You're actually moving towards what you want to do. So my kind of feeling about it is you should never sacrifice health, never sacrifice relationships, and never sacrifice fun for too long. Obviously, there's periods where you got to work hard, but like you said, like there's elements of working hard. If you're enjoying that process of working hard, awesome. As long as you're not over sacrificing maybe health and relationships, it's kind of a good sweet spot. But a lot of times we end up in between where we may maybe feel a bit guilty of not working hard enough, and then we sacrifice other things that matter to work harder because that's what we should be doing. And that's where it gets a little bit blurry, where you need to find that balance for yourself. So for you, when you came out of this kind of intense period of these 16 hours, what were some of the main things you had to do lifestyle wise, habit changes to kind of find a bit more balance for yourself?
Like what changes for me to like go from this to a more balanced thing?
Yes.
I think I just like I realized that like whatever I do, I'm not gonna be more happy. Like at the beginning, I really have I know it sounds dumb, but I really have the belief that like if I got more money, I will have less problem. And it's true, obviously. You can be more free of your time. I don't have to wake up very early for a job I don't like. So I have all these things all achieved. And I'm really grateful for that. But the thing is, um, you need to understand. I didn't understand back in the days that like there will be always new challenges, new problems, and new things I wanted to do. And the beginning I was like, okay, I'm gonna like be a 6 pro, win money, blah blah blah. And when I like achieved this, now I was like, okay, but at certain point I was like, or I'm even doing it. Like, yeah, I'm gonna play 2 years, maybe like triple my bankroll. Okay, well, what's the point? Actually, just losing times. And so I'm not saying that like playing poker is a loss of time, but I'm just saying that to myself that probably I need to start focusing more on my happiness CV because it's what's matter the most on the long run. Yeah, on the short run at my age, I think one of the most important things we should focus on is money in our world. It's not the most. Health is first for me. Relation is second. But money is third. Like it's very important. In all worlds, unfortunately, whatever. Um, if you think it's bad or not bad. And so I think the switch made when like the third one was like I achieved what I kind of wanted. Obviously, we are men, so we always want more and stuff. But anyway, so near enough was the time to focus about the second and the first. So it was more natural for me, I would say, the transition, simply because I got what I wanted in terms of freedom. Like the reason why I played poker and my main motivation was like playing for wherever I want, whenever I want, without people saying me you need to do this or this. This was my goal. So as soon as I achieved the goal, the other extra was more like for the challenge, I would say. It was not that important. And it's super funny because I started my YouTube channel kind of at this time where like I knew I was succeeding and it was working well. Simply because I think I started to understand that like I will like to enjoy different things. And I think the YouTube the I started in 2021 was the French channel. And I started it I think thinking that I need also this balance of like relation, and I didn't have this, so I probably kind of create a YouTube for the interaction. Also because I knew that it will be useful in the future, and it's always great to like give back what you had. And it's always something I told to myself, like I watch a lot of videos. I was like, okay, when I will get like better, it will be like my turn, and it's like an extra motivation, and also it helps you. Um, for me, it helped me being in the game for a long time, because now it's gonna be next year is gonna be 9 years, so it's have to be actually really a lot, especially when you're young, because it's a bigger fraction of your life. And yeah, if I didn't have like this, other things like live games or like YouTube or like coaching, would have been way more difficult for me to stay in the game and like just play nine to five, because I didn't want a 9 to 5. And if I only play poker and I start like enjoying it less, that is like a 9 to 5 again. More comfortable, obviously, but still the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's understanding like what you like over the long term. You mentioned happiness EV, and we all have a different kind of equation and formula for that. And you were kind of self-aware enough to realize like long term, you want more connection, you want other avenues other than just grinding all the time, and you were proactive to creating that outcome. So yeah, good work on that one. I want to jump into your story when things were struggling and you turned things around. So we've mentioned this kind of break even patch where you were studying the wrong things. We've mentioned you taking on a coach and that kind of really helping you. Talk us through when poker really started to click and when you started to realize, wait a second, I can make a living from this game and I can actually have a lot of success from this.
Yes, it was in May 2020. My first month, I played 100 NL, 200 NL, where I was stacked. And I think I did like 8,000, 9,000. So divide it by two. And I think it's the first time like I did like a substantial outcome, and I understood like I could make a living from this game. So obviously you have the excitation. And I remember I had so much energy into this. Like I was waking up at like 5 or 6 a.m. naturally, because I just wanted to play. Well, maybe it was addiction, but I was a subject. And so like I just wanted to play, play, and I really was like passionate at this time even more, because I realized that all the work I did makes sense now. So obviously the 2 years and a half, 3 years, I didn't have any results. Actually, a little bit more than 3 years, but I knew that like it was just coming actually. And that's how I realized I was starting to make a living out of it. Yeah, and what really changed for me, I mentioned a little bit earlier, is when I understood that the most important is constructing the neuronal link for training things. And if I always consistently deeply think about what I'm doing and what's the best action, on the long run, I'm going to manipulate ranges and things way faster than other people. And when I understood this and I started doing this consistently, I was working in my game all the time, because when I was playing, even if the pot was 4 blinds and the bet 1 blind, I could still think for 30 seconds. And I was taking my time. And I think taking your time sounds like so like a simple advice, but for the technical game, I think is the most important advice I've heard and I actually done. It's the most important, because I see too many players. Let's say the player spots and they're taking this decision instantly. And the big problem about taking decision instantly is two main problems. The first one, on the short run, you don't take the best decision, so you don't maximize the EV you have, because in average you are not going to maximize your decision if you're doing them instantly, because you need to think about it. That's the first problem. And the second problem is, on the long run, you have you have less results. So less results brings also like um, weaker results, and you didn't build these links and this way of thinking that can bring you to higher results, because you take your decision instantly. There's not enough work of thinking exactly what you want to do, and that's caused the problem of not being not being fast in the process enough to learn things. Simply because now, if you can't do it yourself, yeah, you can watch videos, take a coach, etc. But if in games you're not capable of deeply thinking about what the opponent is doing, you are not maximizing your UV in this way. And I think I like theory. I'm never gonna say it's not useful, but the problem of too many players is there too much on theory, and they don't think enough about what's great into the human worlds. Because when you play against human, it's way more like a scenario linked EV type of things. It's more like, okay, what do I lose if he does that? How much do I win? How much do I win if he does this? How much do I lose if he does that? And just like calculated the EV. But the way the EV needs to be calculated in theory is completely different, because in theory, the EV is literally always the same. But when you play against a human, theory or not, there is, I mean, when you play against a human, every humans play differently. So there is the discrepancy in the EVs. Let's say I play against a guy, he's never bluffing. Well, my EV is way lower. Let's say I play a guy that is like bluffing a little bit more. Well, my EV is like slightly ahead about zero. And the problem in the games of way too many people is they're going to think, oh, in theory it's profitable. And it's not about like, oh, it's profitable in theory, but it's not really against humans. But what you need to really understand is against humans, you need to calculate it the outcomes of the most probable scenarios. So let's say I play a situation where people like over bluffing sometimes, under bluffing sometimes. It's near zero the EV, but there are some players in the population that are never bluffing. Whereas they're never bluffing, I lose the wall amounts I put in the middle. And so if you don't calculate it, the discrepancies, the density zones where like people are in the spectrum of the EV. So like let's say you have like people around zero, people at where you are losing a lot. If you don't calculate the spectrum and you only focus about theory, you're gonna think, okay, but in theory my hand's a call, and most people like bluff enough for me to have a call. Yes, they bluff enough, but if one or two guys not bluffing enough out of 10, you're just losing massive actually. You're losing all the bet. And the losses can't compensate the wins. And the problem of theory is it doesn't have this. There's no discrepancy because the EV is always the same. And so humans don't have enough this thinking of um I think in a way of them of like probability linked to scenarios and scenarios linked to EVs. And you should think about this all the time as humans. And that's the you told me you asked me how I will teach myself or teach someone's at started poker, and I will clearly do this at first and understand more the way of thinking like this because it's way more effective than theory. Yeah.
Mm. Is there an optimal thinking period of time? Because you mentioned the longer you think, the better from your experience. But what some players tend to overthink. Maybe they take too long on a spot, and maybe they lean towards biases. Let's say they're a German overcaller, and maybe they would normally have followed the spot, but the more they think about it, they just get lost in their heads. It sounds like for you, because you've got such a clear thinking process, the longer you take, you just go deeper and deeper into that process, and the
Mm.
time you spend is kind of used well. I feel like some players might struggle with spending too long. From your experience with working players, coaching players, have you noticed any sort of sweet spot, maybe for river situations, where how long you should be thinking on these kind of big decisions?
Mm. So let's say we are in a bluff catcher situation. The way I'm going to think, this is actually the only way I'm going to think, is I'm going to assess probabilities to scenarios. Scenarios like what humans will do with their ranges. And I'll also assign weights toward the ranges. And okay, let's say we are in a spot where he free bet free barrel. Okay. I'm gonna ask the first question I'm gonna ask is, okay, does he always have his value ends play this way? And why is the first question is because if it's the case, it means that my EV can't be the whole pot. Because if my EV could be the whole pot, it means he will not have his value and he will only have bluffs. And when it's not the case, if I do the EV discrepancies, I see that there is no way ahead of zero situations because everybody has value in these spots. So even if they bluff the whole bluffing combos they have, I still can't win the whole pot. That's the first question. The second spot is what people will do in average. So let's say there is a population of 10 players. How do I think players will play? If I say that, let's say there's 10 players, half, like 50% of the pool or 60% of the pool will play. And okay, 60%, let's say 50, 60% of the pool, like vast majority, it's better to not speak in terms of percentages. So let's say the vast majority of people are in the scenario of like having values and having bluffs. Okay. And so I know that against them, my EV is near zero. Okay. Because some people over bluff, some people under bluff slightly, but it's basically around zero. Like, let's say a little bit less, little bit more, whatever. But there are also some part of people that are just not going to have bluffs because the bluff not see bet on the flop, not second barrel, or just one free barrel. And if he thinks that I'm like very over calling, he's not gonna have any bluffs. And so I know that there are like the two main scenarios that will happen, and it's not only in terms about like how many people, but like what's the frequency, what's the frequency it will happen, and what's the EV loss or EV gain. Because obviously, if one people out of 10 only have bluffs, it's really important to the equation because like you win the wall pots and compensate the EV loss you can have um, with other people. So let's say I play against now the population of like bluffing, value betting, and like only bluffing. Well, the problem is only value betting. The problem is if people only value bets, am I gonna lose the whole stack? So putting in the middle. And if there is one guy out of 10, it's not going to compensate the EV win I have in average, thinking that in average most people have bluffs but slightly over bluff. And so the main difference with this thinking and theory is in theory, there is no discrepancy of the EV. So there is not like massive EV loss, massive EV win. And so the overall EV, we understand that sometimes in theory it's going to be zero. And it's not about people like under bluffing, because sometimes you're going to play against the population that over bluffs. But with the discrepancy, you understand that like, yeah, when they over bluff, you win one blind, but when they don't bluff, you lose 60 blinds, for example. And so thinking this way on the river, like this framework of thinking, okay, what's the most important scenarios, is the most important because you will understand. Um, you will understand if you don't teach it with me. If you do it with me, you will understand there's some patterns, like precise patterns that like happens all the time. Where like, okay, let's say most people like have bluffs, but people will sometimes not have bluff in spots. Well, it's actually not a good call often because the person not having bluff is it's too important to the EV loss you have overall. So it's not going to be profitable, even if most people let's say overbluff a little bit. And there are some other spots, let's say you play against traditional players who like you just like don't flop, check turn, like pot river, for example. The way he plays such in an unbalanced way, he's never gonna have his values and his bluff. He's either gonna have values or you're gonna face someone only having bluffs. And so it changed the discrepancy because now it's either you win the wall pots or you lose what he puts in the middle, the bets, basically. And so now it's completely different because even if sometimes I can be always, it's in this sense here, even if sometimes I can be always behind, yes, but there are going to be some time where I'm going to be always ahead. And if I'm always ahead, it will compensate the EV loss I have when I'm way behind. And so some type of catching spots are way more profitable to call than other ones. And the last one I said was like free barrel or free bet pots. In this scenario, I'm going to be slightly ahead often against, let's say, the original pool, but some people are not going to have bluffs. And when they don't have bluff, it affects my EV too much, and it can be compensated by these densities of people where I'm slightly ahead over zero. And it's different than the spots I just said, where like, yeah, sometimes he's only gonna have values, but when he only have bluffs, he really compensates the EV loss I have when he only have values. Yeah. Also because when he only have bluffs, you win the pot plus his bet. Basically, which yeah. So this is how I think for bluff catching, bluffing, few other areas. Yeah.
Yeah, I think going through that process you did there, I could see your memory skills and how you learn memory coming in there. So you mentioned organizing there. You're organizing what's most important with these set of questions. You were simplifying to some degree. You're going, what information's important, what's not, and kind of prioritizing that. And then you're making associations with like the player pool, how people generally play to make a good decision. I think because you've got such a clear, simplified thought process, the longer you take, the more time you can go through those kind of linear sequence of questions where I feel like other players might not have that structured way of thinking. So you give some players a time bank on a river and they're just going to go around in circles, just going, has he got this? Has he got that? And they kind of just back and forth second guess themselves. But for you, because your thoughts are so clear, as a hierarchy of decision making, you was like, almost like tick through your list. So yeah, if anyone who's maybe struggling with their river decisions or decisions in general, maybe going through your thought process and trying to really organize them so you've got a clear hierarchy of questions to ask yourself to go through. So when you're in these situations, it's just a system to go through, which it sounds like you've got very well dialed in.
The problem of people is like let's say they face a decision, they have a spot, they put it into the thinking process and they lead to a decision. The problem about that is I can say a lot of things in the middle are just not good. So this will leads to the like wrong thing to do. Sometimes the right thing, obviously. With the systems, obviously it's you can't do it like for all decisions. Because you can do it for all decisions, but for a specific decision like this on the river, it's like way easier to do. Is okay. You estimated what's the EV discrepancy, what's all the thing we discussed about, and okay, let's say I'm in the spots where like most people, like close to all people, have always a value hands and bluffs, and sometimes they don't have bluffs. If you recognize this type of situation, you know that in average you can't win because as soon as someone is not bluffing, you lose so much that it can't compensate DV wins when people over bluff. And what I do in these spots, for example, is instead of like having a big thinking process, I'm just thinking, okay, is this distribution? It's like you had over zero, way behind, under zero type of spots. And if it is, I fold. I don't know, I'm not even thinking about this. So we go from like having a thought process to a decision. But now I want to understand that am I in this correct distribution so I can take the decision right away. And so the key to understand about that is now the only mistakes I can do is not analyzing it, the distribution well. Because if I analyze the distribution well, and I took the best decision because I know that the best decision is fold. And let's say I played in spots where I play against a fish, is these are like only gonna have value or only gonna have bluffs, then the decision process is gonna change. And actually in this distribution, sometimes call, sometimes fold. It's a little bit more complicated. But I know that like I have this framework where like, okay, identify one situation that is like similar to those situations. And if it's the case, and like I take the best decision. And the only mistakes I can do now is like in term of like not really understanding its the distribution well. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I think it comes down to you've got to understand something on a deep level, and it gets quite complicated for a period before you can simplify to know what matters, to know actually how to make a shortcut, so to speak, but without costing yourself. So you mentioned this kind of A to B kind of analogy of making a decision or thinking about a spot and then making a decision. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of kind of wiggle room in the middle, which you've got to think through. You've got to organize. You've got to get clear on what actually matters. Then once you understand at a high level, it sounds like for you, it's like, oh, one of these spots, awesome. That just puts me here. And then you can make a very quick decision because you know the factors that really matter. So yeah, very a lot of food for thought there, and I'm sure the listeners will be thinking about their own thought process and how to maybe fine tune it. I want to dive in now to your mental game. You mentioned mental game has been a bit of a challenge for you, so I'm curious to know how that's created issues for you moving up stakes, and yeah, some of the obstacles you've run into with your mental game.
I think I have a mental coach since like 2 years and a half. Very good guy, French guy named Laurent. Um, the problem I have with the mental games are two things. Is like when I lose and when I do mistakes. The first one is when I do mistakes, and I never succeed to develop an effective way to like support it. And there was a lot of times where like I was doing a mistakes I knew I shouldn't do. I was like so silly that I had to stop the session. And it's actually happened quite a lot back in the days. Now a bit less because I think mental game is sometimes it's something you like learn at a deeper level. So it can takes a lot of time sometimes to improve. Tell me if I'm wrong. So I improve on that, but like yeah, back in the days it was very difficult because I didn't have the skill to like being resilient in it, continue. And yeah, sometimes I start the session, I lose two or three buy-ins, and not happy to lose, so I just stop the session. And I know it sounds unprofessional, but the problem is if I continue, like I just I could have played well. It's not like a tilted play. I'm never gonna be tilted when I play, but I just feel very bad emotions, and these emotions were always tough to manage, and that's why I like tend to stop sometimes sessions super fast because of that. So it affects more like the way I played after like in terms of like studying. I don't think I had too many like mental issues, I would say. But yeah, learning that was the two main problem I had. And yeah, this yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the two biggest obstacles that most players run into for a mindset, which is losing, making mistakes. Almost everything comes downstream of those two variables. So how did you start to deal with them? Let's start with losing. So part of the game, the variance of poker, no matter how good you get, no matter how amazing your decision-making machine is, you're going to have to deal with losing. So for you, what have been some of the most valuable lessons you've learned to allow you to handle losing better?
Mm. Yeah, I'm gonna say something a bit controversial, but I think people need to be massively result oriented. I think the polar of saying you need to be not result oriented, obviously sometimes yes. But what are like the sometimes it's really important to wonder, is it really cooler or not? You know? Like, oh, I four bet kings, he has aces pre-flop, cooler. Yeah, but I mean, you are big blind against early position. You know, maybe people don't really five bet much this position. Okay, what's your EV when he only have aces? Okay, you lose 80 blinds. Okay, what's your EV when he has ace king and aces? Okay, win whatever 20 blinds. Oh, but if this first scenario is going to happen less, almost, you know, like when you ask this question, sometimes the answer will be yes, it's a cooler, but sometimes it will not. And if you like not develop this thought process and you say, oh, this is a cooler, oh, okay, this is a cool, I lose, and you don't go further, like, okay, but what is it really a cooler? Like, for example, you will start to develop some thinking and pay attention to other things. So sometimes I got situations where like, yeah, but I really didn't like to lose, and I start to think, oh, maybe I can find those information. So I start thinking more about timing tasks, for example. And then I noticed that, yeah, my hand is like clear call in theory, but I mean, when this guy like bets so fast, he's like often having it. So obviously I started to call and I was tilted because my thinking was right about the timing. But really being rigid on it, it's up you develop this thinking process of really deeply thinking, is the hand was well played on it? Like, could you have make the fold? And obviously, at the end, it's better not to be oriented too much. But it's very important to have this process of saying, okay, oh, let's say I bet he called me this. Instead of saying like, oh, he's dumb. No, he's not dumb. Maybe he called this because of a reason. And so, okay, why did he call this? And you sort of create this path of thinking that like makes you improve the decision as much as you can. And so even in my game this day, I'll still be result oriented. Let's say free barrel, he has a good bluff catcher, he added to call, and I know he's more like a typical players. What can I do? Like, it's okay. But okay, let's say sometimes okay, he tanked a lot with a hand that should have called and was in value. Okay, why he tanked a lot? Maybe he thinks that I may be too nitty, maybe he's some stuff on my timing. And it really helps you like question yourself all the time. And I really really sure about that. There are way less coolers than people think. And sometimes people just click on the call button, but they don't understand the things I just say before compared to theory. The EV chains are very important to understand because as soon as you have someone's not bluffing enough or not bluffing at all, you're actually losing some massive that is very difficult to compensate if you play against like somehow most balanced ranges, most people balance ranges. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think lessons from losing is the main thing there, like how to extract lessons and go deeper when you see a loss. And I think you're looking there for what assumptions aren't correct. Like, have I made some false assumptions here? Am I assuming this is how it plays out? And every time you lose when it's painful, it's an opportunity to either gloss over it, to get too sucked into what you've lost and feeling bad about it. But there's also a doorway that opens going, interesting, that didn't play out the way I wanted to. Is there something to learn here? I think understanding that every loss can be an opportunity to tap into that. So the second one you mentioned was mistakes, and I'm guessing mistakes can be taken the same way, as in how to learn from them. So yeah, talk about how you've improved your relationship with making mistakes. So this is like a really big one, especially when you class yourself as quite a smart person. You pride yourself on being good at poker. Making mistakes just hurt. They just suck. So how have you been able to better handle mistakes and use them more proactively?
Mm, okay, we're gonna say something a little bit funny. This year, I started to train a little bit relation with girls. So I did some stuff where like with coaches and friends, we were like doing in the streets. Well, I actually didn't really like doing it. Actually, I hated doing it. And so we are approaching a woman, and the girl was trying to go on a date. And what I learned is sometimes you do mistakes and you will do so much mistakes. You can even still be bad after the mistakes. And so when I like trained this a lot this year, and actually I was really bad and still very bad. It's not my best range. I learned that like there's some area in my life where like I can train a lot, do mistakes, I'm not gonna improve.
So I need to be grateful for the area of my life where I do mistakes and I improve in this one. And in poker, for example, I become what I became. I become what I am because like I did so many mistakes I could have improved on. Otherwise, I will not. And there are some areas where I can do like an infinite amount of mistakes until very bad. And it really helped me understand like and just be grateful of the mistakes I do because when you only focus about the poker mistakes, you are stuck in this area where like you're like, oh, I do mistakes, I would like to do less mistakes. But you don't even understand that some area you can do like 1,000 mistakes without even a single improvement, or like very few. And so when you start to understand that um, mistakes are here to help you on your way of for things that are important for you. Obviously, it's a way more effective way to see the mistakes problems, the error problems.
How do you make sure you are learning from mistakes? I think one of the frustration players have is that they see themselves making mistakes that they should have fixed. They're like, I've already worked on this. I shouldn't be making this mistake right here, right now. I know this is a bad call, yet here I am calling again. How do you make sure these moments become the learning opportunity that they're meant to be, and it's not just a repeated pattern? As you mentioned, sometimes we make the same mistake 1,000 times and don't learn, and that's the most frustrating. So how do you make sure in the poker context that when you are making mistakes, it does become something that you learn from?
You cannot. You will do mistakes that you will do 10, 20 times before fixing. Again, poker is like a language. Let's say you say a sentence, which is not, this is wrong, and you say it again, it's gonna be right. But you can't be right for the whole time. I think we got this vision from school where like you do mistakes, then you don't do the mistakes, and after it's better. You can't. Like gonna do mistakes. I did some calls, shitty call, like 100 times before not doing it. 100 times, not one, two, tens, hundreds. And it's very important to understand that it's not binary. Like I do mistakes, I fix this, and sometimes mistakes takes a lot of time to be fixed. And when you accept the time it takes, it also makes you like in a better relation with the mistakes. Like if back in the days I was like saying to myself, yeah, but it's normal. Like accept that it's normal. It's a normal situation. I would have less problems with doing mistakes. I would have to let less because I would have understood that it's super important part of the whole process. I think it would have helped me quite a lot. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I think as well accepting that it's not fixed yet. Because sometimes players like getting caught in the narrative of I shouldn't be doing this. It's like, well, newsflash, you just did it. Now what? It's not fixed yet. So get on with it. And I think that's like element of I've done the work, I've worked on this problem should be gone. It's like, nope, sometimes it takes 20, 50, 100 repetitions to solidify. And as you mentioned, as long as you're intentional, I think you've got to, as you mentioned, because sometimes people don't learn from mistakes ever, is because it's like, all right, another mistake, another mistake. You've got to have intentionality to go, that isn't good enough yet. How can I improve going forward? It's like reinforce the it's not quite fixed yet. So let's say you're mispronouncing a word or you're going to speak to a girl and you get rejected every time. And then you go back to 100 girls with the same chat up line. It's like you got rejected 100 times. Well done. It's like you need to somehow learn that, okay, I need to actually be more intentional. What went wrong? How can I improve this? What am I missing here? Why did this mistake come up again for the 80th time? And why haven't I got past it yet? Without judging. And that's the balance of accepting it, but also intentionality. Mistakes don't just disappear. You've got to put something in to fix them as well.
No, I just wanted to repeat what I was saying, but yeah, it's very true. And for me, the most important for poker is understand there are some other areas where like you're gonna do mistakes, improve way less than the poker area. So like always like be grateful, understand that like this type of mistakes that you're doing sometimes just takes a lot of time to be fixed.
Big shout out to GTO Wizard for sponsoring today's podcast. If you are a frequent listener of the pod, you know that at least 90% of our guests use solvers to get ahead in the game, and GTO Wizard is by far the best and most accessible tool if you want to use GTO to get ahead as well.
We are proud to announce a technological breakthrough. Introducing GTO Wizard AI. This powerful technology can solve any custom poker spot in seconds to high accuracy. Unlike pre-solved solutions, this allows you to edit the solving parameters. That means you can modify the ranges, change the stack and pot sizes, customize the betting tree, and automatically simplify and optimize your bet sizes. Brace yourself. The meta is about to change.
So sign up to GTO Wizard using the link below, gtowizard.com/mechanics. Get 10% off your first month and join the weekly coaching webinars, of which one every month is with me. Looking forward to educating you guys over there. But without further ado, let's continue more goodness in today's episode.
For you, what have been some of the most important habits or routines that you've developed that have allowed you to get more balance, but also perform at a better level? Maybe this happiness EV, performance EV, kind of tying together some of like the habits that you've developed over the years that have been very valuable for you.
Well, sports I think is probably the most important. I also walk 1 hour a day. So it really helps me to refresh my thoughts a little bit. It's tough to really to explain like what happened when you walk, but yeah, I always feel more fresh after it. I also had a study of writing the book. So it's been since 2016 I'm doing this every day. Now I do more audio notes. And sometimes I don't do it every day. I do it for like every each day. So like let's say I didn't do it for 5 days, I will do the 5 days in a row. And it really helped me having this like back vision of my life. So and it really helped me like support better the things I was experiencing. Because let's say, okay, I'm in a downswing. Speaking about it and seeing yourself from the third person is always great because it's allow you to have a better angle of things that you are living, and really helped me a lot. And there's always also some other things like meditation helped me a lot, but always really difficult to have the habit. So I never had the habits of like doing it consistently. And yeah, I think this the two main. There's no like very it is two main.
Mm. Yeah, I'm interested in this one of kind of reflecting and giving yourself advice or notes on yourself. I think you mentioned you did it as an audio. Do you combine those two behaviors of walking and like taking like some notes for the day? And talk us about like how that kind of looks, because I think some people will relate to wanting to get things off their mind, to things they're learning, and yeah, how do you practically do that? What's the kind of
It was
um
yeah. The journaling was very sorry. I did journaling for like 4 years, and after I did audio notes. But the journaling part was really reflecting on my life. Was not it wasn't for poker or like learning specifically something. So it's really okay. How do I lead the day? Because I actually I ate don't not remembering things. Maybe that's also why I train memory unconsciously. So I always wanted to know what I did on the day. So like if I want to see years later, well, I'll sit back. And it helped me also if it was not doing well. So I was in high school and I really hated the school and stuff. And so it helped me reflecting, helped me to understand that like I will face difficulties. I will face some challenges. That is normal. And having this like third vision is like better to support and be vigilant on. So let's say you have pain, physical pain, for example, physical problem. Um, writing it and like put in words what you are really feeling is a better way to support the thing you're currently challenging. It's, and so it was way better for me for like all the little challenge I had and also bigger challenge I had to have this like third vision, knowing that it's a part of my life and writing it, doing audio notes. Well, sometimes I have little problem, but I remember that I wrote some bigger problem I had in the past, so this one is a little, it's just a little problem, and it's also helped you um, putting things in the right orders and not like over focusing on something that is actually not a very big problem. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, I'm curious to know, is there any kind of system to this? So you can reflect in a lot of ways. You can reflect on what went well today, what have been the biggest things I've run into, or you can reflect on like areas of your life that you're performing, not performing, feeling good, not feeling good. So I'm curious for you, as you've been doing this for a long time, have you got any sort of like things you reflect on more frequently in terms of your system for doing this? Maybe you reflect on your life choices, maybe you're reflecting on how you're feeling. So yeah, anything that comes to mind for that.
Mm, I think it's very. There are a few things like this year, but like the for the past years, really depends on the exact period. So let's say I will have my final exam. I will talk a lot about the final exam I'm gonna have. Um, let's say I have something very important that I will need to do. I will talk about this. If I played poker on the day, I will talk about poker. So I will talk to myself obviously about poker. So it's very not like too many specific things, but there are some periods. And for example, these periods, the thoughts I had more these days are more about like sacrifices I done and I regret doing it because I have like lost things that were important to me. And yeah, this comes back so often, and it's cool because uh when you do this you really understand like what's important for you, because naturally the thoughts come back. And as you said, yeah, sometimes you notice that, oh, okay, this subject comes back, poker probably comes back a little bit less than before, and it really helps you understanding, okay, what's really the most important thing, not in one audio note, but let's say on a month. And you reflect, oh, okay, I didn't talk too much about that, for example. And now this day I talk more about relationship. Also, I'm more interested about health stuffs, like in terms of like alimentation. And yeah, just help you understand like how do you move through your life and what do you prioritize the most.
Mm. Yeah, I'm thinking myself, I want to maybe start this habit of maybe doing daily audio notes of reflecting things on my mind. You could then get that audio note transcribed. You could put it in a chat GPT and go, what are the
Yep.
most things I've talked about the most this month? Because, hey, you're talking a lot about your relationships or a lot about poker goals, and kind of try to condense that. Because as you mentioned, there's this element of organizing stuff, which I think is often a missing piece. So there's a capturing, like there's capturing a note. And I always think like that, what next? Myself, I always struggled when there's not a what next. Even journaling sometimes, when I journaled a lot and there wasn't like where I was going, I wasn't looking back on the notes. It was just it was a nice practice and I did enjoy it for periods. But now I like more the practicality of what did I learn from that period. So for you, yeah, kind of taking these audio notes, it feels like it could be a good way to yeah, reflect on what's actually important. And it's one of those things like we're kind of blindsided to it. We've got a lot of blind spots in what's important. We're kind of making these little trade-offs in the moment, and sometimes we're getting them wrong. And we're sacrificing things that matter for things that don't matter. And like over time, you start to see those patterns and go, wait a second, I say these things are important, but I'm spending no time on it. I'm fat, overweight, look like a mess. Yet I keep saying that health is the most important thing for me. What's going on here? How do I recalibrate? So yeah, I really feel like this consistent repetition of building awareness seems like a really, really good practice.
I personally I don't calculate. I do it more like without calculate the amount of time I speak about each subject. I mean, it's more like okay, like I talk about things, okay, what I talk about, for example, and but in more like a natural way, not really calculating it. And also I do this to project myself. Sometimes I'm gonna have something to do, or something is really important to me. I have a new goal, and these audio notes help me. It just don't talk about like protecting myself, understanding the difficulties I can have, also like what will happen if it happens, like what's the benefits, and it also helped me like protecting myself, and sometimes just great to visualizing what you need to do in order to achieve something. And sometimes actually I use emojis. I just say what I do on the day, and there's no like very like super important things. Sometimes I don't even say what I do on the day. I speak about something for 10 minutes. It's really variable. I would say that I just let the freedom of what I want to do in this notes. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. And yeah, I think it's an element of just allowing you to get things out of your minds. And often we think better through either writing it out or speaking it out. It's really hard to like go through lots of thoughts just in your mind. You often need an outlet for those thoughts to condense them to understand what's actually going through your mind and to condense things. So yeah, really, really like that. And I think it's a very useful practice that a lot of people could do, either writing or audio. I think both work very well. Rene, for yourself, do you have any form of regular reflecting, any journaling, or anything you're currently doing?
I've actually experimented with both. For the audio notes, you can actually make a WhatsApp group, uh, invite someone, have a three-way, and then
Yeah.
take the other one out, and then you have a WhatsApp group with yourself. That's really helpful. So you can just drop audios there for the people who want a way to do it. Journaling, I've experimented with in various ways as well. If I have a continuous thought or feeling that comes up, I like to just sit down and grab a piece of paper and write down the feelings. Let's say I constantly feel anxiety. I write down anxiety and just start writing around it. Sometimes I have to go to a second page because, and then you start to think, oh, wait, and then you start to link and you need more pages to get to kind of the source of the problem. But then after an hour of writing everything out and you kind of zoom out and you see it on paper, it's like, huh, so that's what's been bothering me. But if you don't write it down, it keeps on looping in your head, you know, and you cannot really break it. So yeah, I found that to be very helpful. So yeah, would definitely recommend. You guys talked about yeah, an insane amount of interesting things. I don't want to repeat too much. I wanted to jump in straight to something that Yolan said, that a lot of people you say theory is important, but also you don't want to use it too much. So I was wondering, what's the theory that is important and you need to apply, and when does it become
Mm.
too much?
So there are, for me, two things in theory. There's what the solver is doing in the spots, and what's the concepts in an exact spot that you can use. And theory need to be understood in a way that as are like concepts. So can be MDF, polarization, the merge, whatever. And you need to understand exactly what's going on. So, okay, why when orange is polar, why do we take the bigger sizing, for example? Okay, why on the river line, when he bets check back, I don't leave an MDF, for example. And really understand all the circle concepts will help you understand better like how the game works. And it's very important to have like very solid understanding of all these questions and don't have like one single concept that is not clear to you. If you don't really understand the visualization, understanding it well, because it will help you with these clear thoughts, will obviously help you in the explorative game. Because if it's very solid the theoretical game, let's say the theoretical game is like it's a fortress. If the fortress is like let's say really big, when you go out of the fortress to exploit people, if the fortress is really big and you have a lot of harms to do this, it's gonna be easier for you to go and try to exploit people. It's a bit weird, so the metaphor, but and if the theoretical foundations are not solid, you have way less effective way to defend yourself and just like exploit people and attack people basically. So yeah, it's very important. And in terms of knowing what the solver is doing, I think I will constantly do the work of thinking what's the theory in this situation, and after try to deviate from what you learn. And for me, it's the best way to proceed because, as we discussed before, if you only do theory, it's a problem. And if you only do exploit, it's a problem because you can't exploit someone if you don't know what the theory is doing. You can, but not in an optimal way. And so you always need both. And it's tough to answer exactly like how much theory and how much exploit you need. I would say against fictional players, 90% exploits, 95, which means you're not going to play theoretical, you're going to think theoretically. And if you play against a reg, I would say 20% theory, 30% theory, and other exploits. Because there's like passive exploits and active exploits. They'll exploit like, oh, I think he's not going to do this, so I'm exploiting it. And you can exploit based on the things you show at showdown or information you have on this guy. Okay, this guy when he's tanking 15 seconds and it goes into his time back, only 1 second of his extra time back and he jump, he's always taking value in, so I fold. And this is a specific read I have on the opponent. But I can also exploit things more in a way, oh, I think when I do this, the population will react this way. If I don't have enough information of the guy, I can put in the sets of the population and playing against like if I play against population. But as soon as I have like way more precise way to exploit him, I will exploit him more like actively, directly, and still like knowing what the tool will do, but I will focus way more on the exploit. And let's say I play against a very strong player I don't know, then obviously I will focus a little bit more about theory, see what mistakes he's doing, see what mistakes is he doing, and after attacking his mistakes.
Yeah, I think it's always important. First question to think about is always, who am I playing against? Because the answer to that question will really depend how you're gonna think for the rest of the hand, right? So, like you said, obviously the tougher your opponent, the more of a, let's say, GTO strategy you implement. For me, that's also a very big distinction. You have the solver, and you can learn, how I see it, you can learn two things from the solver. You can learn what a GTO strategy looks like, or you
Mm.
can learn what poker theory concepts drive the GTO strategy. So there, for me,
Absolutely.
you have the theory and you have a GTO strategy. And in my opinion, theory always applies, right? But you might not execute the GTO strategy. You might do, actually, you take a different action, because your opponent you're not so interested in playing a GTO strategy, right? You're deviating from that, but you can still apply certain theoretical concepts in terms of the bet size that you choose or the hand that you choose in a certain line, which can all be driven around certain theoretical concepts. You mentioned already that you can do too much of one thing and the other. Now, you have like very theory oriented camps that are like, I don't care what you do. I'm just gonna play my version of GTO, And if you don't want to bluff or if you want to overbluff, you do you. And they have the other guys who are, handed data sheets, MDA, and they go full in on that. We talked already a little bit about the theory. Um, in terms of exploitation, how do you get better? I know MDA is very popular, but it seems like you have good reads, but it comes more from understanding theory and therefore you're able to exploit, or are you also
Yeah.
in the MDA camp?
I would say I'm not in the MDA camp. I don't think it's bad. I think if it's used well, it's great. But I think if it's not used well, it's shit.
So how do you use it well? What's like an example of using it well, using it?
Okay, from yeah, you the word shit. But no, for me the way you need to use MDA is sports where it's very obvious that the population is doing something, then you exploit them. But when it's all like the the data points are not relevant enough compared to theory, you are not doing anything. Because okay, let's say I play bet check bets. I know that the pool is over. I say random numbers. It's over bluffing by 5%, so I'm gonna call. The big problem about this is it defocus you too much about the game and you just follow sheets. And yeah, it's a call, but the guy just snap bets. And when his guy snap bets, he always have value in. So the call is actually losing 7. But because you're not orientated and you follow sheets, you're gonna say, "Oh, okay, my call is winning," but it's actually losing a lot. And the problem is, um, in games of way too much information for me that will make you divert from the sheets if you know what the guy is doing a little bit. So let's say I play against a no population, playing with MGA, it's gonna work better than not, probably. But as soon as I have one information about one guy, so let's say he's not value betting seen enough, where I'm following shit anymore. Because these sheets are not relevant for this specific guy. And for me, you always have, if you want, enough information on the guy to take better decisions than with sheets. And when you don't have, obviously you can use MDA. Again, it's not good and not bad. I think in general, like if someone says like one thing is super important and it's the only thing, like let's say theory is the only thing, or MDA is the only thing, or exploit is the only thing, like in general they want to sell something. But it's very difficult to like find someone saying, okay, only thing is very important and like be very good at it at the game. Because you always need like all elements. I think it can be good without MJ. I think MJ is definitely a good tool, but I think it's probably a little bit people overestimate it, I think, a little bit. And it's very obviously if it's used well, it's a good tool, but I think too many players just use it as okay, I look at my sheets. I'm not really looking enough about the player, obviously, because obviously most people will look about the other player, but not enough. And so they take the decisions that are not optimal. And I'll finish about that on the subject. The big problem about MGA is it's switch the game between thinking actively about what's the best option to okay remembering what's the best option in average. So it's like kind of the same thing as theory. You're going to say, oh, this thing is a call, I call, but you don't focus about elements you have in game. Oh, maybe he bet 3/4 and he's sizing by 2 blinds, and maybe when people are doing this, it's a bit more value heavy. And with this information, I will fold, whereas the MD guy and the show guy will make the call, as they will like lose money. Obviously sometimes I will like pay attention to a detail. I'm going to be completely wrong, so I'm going to lose money by thinking I'm exploiting because it's a balance. Sometimes when I win, sometimes I'm going to lose. But in average and on the long run, you win way more thinking deeply about what you do, simply because you take better decision and you have a way more effective thinking process. And it's not something you can develop following sheets. So obviously, always try to use each things in a balanced way. We'll say.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah, so what I'm kind of getting from you, and I definitely agree, it's not necessarily what you decide to use, it's more how you use it. And
Exactly.
especially I completely agree with you because if you go full on theory, full on NDA, you're no longer thinking about what's actually going on. You're no longer trying to figure out anymore what your opponent has, which in the end, figuring out what your opponent has, will have quite a big consequence to what your best EV play will be.
Yeah,
And
what's your image? Yeah.
exactly, right? There's more to that. But then usually, what the MDA camp kind of gives as feedback, or think a reason why, for example, a lot of big stables and stuff, they go for a more MDA approach, because it's hard. So poker is hard, right? And therefore they now try to simplify it into sheets so they can teach more people, and therefore these tables can make more money. Where I have mixed feelings on that. On one side, I do think it allows maybe some people that otherwise, for example, wouldn't be able to be 200 and now can now suddenly play online poker for a living, and that's great. Because I usually hear the argument that if you teach people all these variables, for example, that you take in consideration or that I take in consideration, it's just too much. It's too sensitive to bias. People just struggle a lot to form a good decision making process, right? And therefore they prefer to just hand them then the sheets, right? Theory and actually solving the puzzle is more complicated and more sensitive to bias, less consistency than just always press call, always press fold.
Exactly. So like people will think, oh, it's tougher to do, so I'm gonna have less result doing it, and it's easier to like follow sheet of full theory, but it's not the way you maximize VV on the short and the long run, as we discussed. Yeah.
And I think also, by the way, if, for example, I've used a lot of MDA as well. The way that I always do it, I still ask myself, just like with studying GTO strategy and theory, why? Try to really understand it at a deeper level instead of just learning the sheets. Because when you understand it on a deeper level, you know when and why, but most importantly, you know when not and why not, right? So you can still make those deviations in game based on new information that come your way. And it's the same, like people say, oh, uh I review hands with, for example, the same guy consistently, and every time it's like, oh, so yeah, but depends on the information. He says, oh, but I don't have any other information. Then they say, well, in the beginning it's fine, okay, you have no other information. You should now do X because we don't have information, but you should start gathering more information. This is something that people don't do, right? Because in the end, the more information you have, the better plays you can make. So people have to actually look and try to gather more information. That's a step that a lot of players kind of miss.
I think we have kind of a similar approach on this, and what I liked when I was watching your videos, you always ask yourself, where does DV come from? And it's a sentence you say a lot, and it's typically that, like, where does DV come from? And when you ask yourself the question, it forces you to think, because it doesn't come from theory, it doesn't come from blind exploit, it doesn't come from MDA or whatever, and it really puts you in the thinking process. And we discussed already how important it is for your brain to think it by yourself, so you can develop a better level and a better understanding at how the game works against humans.
Yeah, by asking these type of questions, you actually learn. You tell a question, then your brain starts to look out. Oh, wait, what is his range actually? Well, let's actually think about this for a second. And then you suddenly start to see things that, you were not seeing before. You mentioned something earlier where you said the game is too big. So I guess with MDA, and trying to make simplified strategies, we always try to kind of make this big game a bit smaller. Let's try to help our audience. Let's try to prioritize things that people should take in consideration, right? We could give them sheets, but we don't want to. So let's try to help them structure their thought process. You already talked a little bit about, you just called one that I like to use, where should my value come from? You already talked about spotting situations in which there is a EV discrepancy.
All DV are distributed.
Does he have value hands? These are certain questions. Could you maybe give our audience like a couple of guidelines of what they should be taking into consideration?
During a hand?
Yeah.
So the first is the profile of the opponent. Obviously. I mean, it's too obvious, so we don't say it enough.
No, but hey, man, people forget this one, man. Or like I said, people don't even label people anymore.
Yeah. Who's the guy you are playing? Second second will be how the guy perceives you. Like, so do you have a perceived image to this guy? And I will wonder, like, minor things like, okay, obviously, what do I think is the best currently?
And I'll always try, and it's very important to project yourself through the hands. I see too many players say, okay, I'm going to use a big side on the flop to apply pressure. Yeah, but you can just like bet smaller and apply pressure later so he can raise his stronger hands. And so I always try to project yourself on the average turn and river runouts. It allows you to take like better decisions through the wall end. And also, I will ask myself, does the eccentricity I can do will work in this guy? So when I say eccentricity, is typically for the bet sizing. So okay, is this guy gonna like overfold the river raise or overfold the river overbet? And if it's the case, then like yeah, probably better to check the turn, or bet the river or like raise if he bets. And always try to ask yourself like questions that can be helpful through the hands. For example, let's say we're in a hand. I have a bluff, and the most important question you need to ask yourself if you want to bluff the turn is all the hands that fold turns or check in the turn and folding the river if you play out of position, for example. It can be also like, okay, is the guy inelastic to my sizing? So if I do something bigger, that's equal also. And I will ask myself, that's the most important question, what's the most certain action to take? If I have to bet my entire house on what's the best action, what will I choose? And when you think this way, you start to have a game with less mistakes. And the goal of poker is actually doing less mistakes than your opponents. It's not about doing better moves; it's just doing about less mistakes because mistakes are more costly than what EVs bring by a better move. So when you ask yourself this, you start to develop a game where like you are going to fix the bigger mistakes, and you can't do very big mistakes because let's say I play a line where like I check raise flop, check raise again, and like just lead small free bet. I mean, this is a random line. While with this thinking process and with the goal of playing more conservative, I'm never gonna play this line. So obviously, sometimes I'm gonna like some EVs because actually it was great to check raise, min bet, free bet. But as often it's not gonna be good. And let's say I'm in spots where I'm saying, oh, okay, it's close, we can do whatever. I will always take what I think in average will be the will be the best will be the best move to do because it's how you maximize within average, and this is how the EV works basically because as soon as you do mistakes, it's in general way more costly than doing a move that's working. The reason why is because when you do a move that is working, there's also a move that works that don't have this downside of mistakes or actually have less chance to have them. So I'll tend to always ask myself how to play more conservative. It doesn't mean you need to be a nit because sometimes I know people overfold here, so I'm always gonna put max pressure and overbet 10x spot if I need. It's really about having this consistency of like thinking through a plan and not like letting random thoughts and random thinking process leading to a decision you're not sure enough about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also feel like if you try to find the best play everywhere, it can go wrong quite often. Like I feel like when there's sort of a genius play, it feels more intuitive. It's like it straight away comes up. It's like, this is a good spot for this. I actually have a very similar philosophy, but I call it more try to make the play that can't be bad. So instead of focus on trying to make the perfect play, I focus on what's the play that can't be bad. Let's try to not screw up, right? Because if you screw up less, then exactly, I like poker game of mistakes. Make less mistakes than your opponent, and you will win. Sometimes a bit too focused on what's like the perfect play, and then you.
You will win if the rack is not 8 blinds per 100.
Yeah, exactly. That can work. Else, we have to start to make perfect plays everywhere. I was wondering, like, throughout your climb, which stake, which jump and stake did you find the toughest?
Mm, I think online is I think 100 like going for the gap between no, is it 50? I think it was 50 NL actually. Yeah, 50 NL. Because 50 NL is the limits where like if you go to 100 NLs there's like pros and 20 NLs there's no pros. So it's really like the transitional limits, and it was the one that was the toughest for me was the NL 50. And after like each limit is a little bit tougher, but it's not for me the biggest gap is between 50 and it's 50 NL actually.
And when you reach high stakes, let's say you make the jump from 1K to 5K, in the past when there was still GG. You had 1K and then you made the jump to 5K.
Yeah.
GG
It's so funny. It is. Like gone. It will to the time where it's gone. That's the sex of trade.
You remember in the past when GG had 1K and then you had VIP games at 5K. You remember that time? What was the difference between Jet Jump when we made that jump in the past? Like what set those games apart from, for example, a grind at mid stakes?
Like what's the difference?
Yeah, what sets the players at those games apart from the guys who play mid stakes?
I think it's just way more experience. Like when I was playing there like full time when we could. I play against guys I play since like 10, 12, sometimes even more, like 14 years. And so experience is the first thing. The second thing is a deep understanding of theory. It's super rare to see like very big theoretical mistakes. And in general, like if someone's not doing the right size on the flop, like it's generally liable, and I know like he will not win. For example, obviously depend on the flop. Um, or this, and yeah, just also like way less scared. Most people like usually want to do. I mean, I have some shorts on Instagram. Like sometimes I bluff second pair. He's called second pair with just a better kicker. Like the directly ends. Just like less scary in average, and also like most these are some people like more like Chinese, Japanese that like a little bit more tight and weaker. They're not professional players, like maybe live pros. There's a lot of like weaker players like this. Yeah, I would say that's the main difference. But it's not I think it was tougher in 2022 than it was just before the lockdown. I would say. The lockdown of 5K table. No, it's just to explain, because maybe people don't know, we can't play 5K plus on GG now publicly. You need to either host games or go in this game. I don't know how it works. I mean, I will see, because maybe I can host some or play. But yeah, I found it really crazy and very. It's it scared me a little bit about the future of online. And obviously now I'm debating way more toward live games and also the formats than not limit all them. But I think now playing 5K plus and want to make a living of 5K plus is kind of dead, actually, because I don't think on ACR or Poker Stars and Coin you can have enough volumes just to play enough sufficient win rates. Maybe it will go off this year's, but yeah, I find it really crazy that what GG did. It's not like bad or good, it's just like it's our business, so they want to maximize the profit. But it sounds crazy to me how you can maximize profits with private games. It's nobody's playing there, it's empty all the time.
You do have experience. You already mentioned that you've been dabbling a bit more in the live scene. Now in live scene, there is a lot of like a lot of how do you call this? A lot of politics, a lot of private games. So tell me a little bit about your transition into live poker.
Okay, so the first transition I had to live poker was in 2022, where I went to Philippines. I already played a little bit in France, and in Philippines I played still playing 510. Remember the first session, one of the best session I did. I think I won like 12 buy-in or something. Really great. I met one guy that advised me to go on a private game, and he took me action on this game. So I was thinking that okay, the game is safe and stuff. And the guy was the son of the owner of the game. Okay, was a Korean guy, and this game was in I don't remember the city, Cebu, I think, in Philippines, and it was a private game in a casino. Okay, so I went there, and they let me play with them. It was Korean, Chinese, Japanese people, Philippines people also, Philippines people, because the son of the owner bring me in the game. But the owner didn't know that his son took actions, and it will be important later. So I started playing into this game. I played first day, it was 10-20, but like everybody has like stacks between 10 and 20K. So I was stacking 10K. And first day I lost 10. So like I play flip, was like I don't remember, but I have like first roll plus one of a card. The guy stop bet or kicker. And he call I lose. Okay. Second day, I don't remember exactly, but again I lose like 12. And third day I lose like 17. So now I'm like, I think it's a bit weird. And I really didn't. At this time, I was not even believing it could be rigged because the sun had action on me. And so yeah, I was like, continue playing the game, and I just didn't know. Like I was just not winning the all-ins. Everything. I was winning a lot. Like I just crushing all the guys, but the all-in when it's goes to well, when you're all-in pre-flop, I was literally never winning. Like never. And I play some dumb pots like 40k pot. I have ace king, another guy have ace king, another guy have ace six, and the guy just makes trips like, and it was this like this over and over. And so I thought I was just really unlucky in the spots. And what happened is the fourth day, I say to people like, okay, if I lose, I quit. And obviously, I won 17,000. And day 5 to day 10, I lost. In total, I lost like 80k. And what was funny is I say to the owner that his son had action on me and started getting extremely mad. And the reason why he got mad is because I learned months later, because I met the organizer of the good where the game where I did the good 12k session that tell me, oh, I put 3 regs in this game and they get destroyed. But what's the quality of 3 regs getting destroyed in these live games where like everybody play 50 VPAPs? Zero, basically. So the game was rigged. I don't know how they was rigging it. And what was really funny is the owner didn't know I took action to his son, so his son like scammed me a little bit, paid after like a long time after. And yeah, it was quite funny. I thought it was impossible that he bring me into a game and he lose actions and he paid me in a in a scamming game. For me, it was not possible. But I think, and it's actually the end of the story is he didn't understand that it was rigged. So I get like double fucked for this. So yeah, the first experience was like a little bit difficult, I would say. And
Wait, so you were like, okay, this live poker thing, that sounds great. Let's play more.
yeah, I was a bit naive, you know. And the last day, I went to back to Manila, and I met one guy named okay, I'll not say his name, and he borrowed me his apartment because I was waiting to play a very big game that I actually didn't play. Was like very big. Like average swing was like between 200k and 2 million US dollar. But like I didn't play, and they were telling me, okay, so we'll put you on some 510 to test you and stuff. But I think I understood that like there was more like letting me hope I will play really big, but was just to like having a horse. I will explain that I was not gonna have a horse. Like I was playing 5k this time, so like why will play 1k 1k full time when the game is not even great. Anyway, and so they're like let me in the apartment, and I went to a session. So that's after getting scammed. Okay, I come back to Manila, and they say to me, "Okay, let's try this 510." And I said, "Okay, let's try for the first time." But again, I'm not gonna be a host forever. I sit on the game. The game is 10% cap, 5 blinds, and I saw like everybody fall for like 3 orbits, and I just leave because like you can't, even if it's not rigged, you can't win basically. Not enough frictional players. And so, so I went back to the apartment at like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. And I started to fall asleep. At like midnight, I hear noises in my apartment, and I don't know why. I just say to myself, "Let's open the door." You know, sounds like a good idea. I open the door. I see two Chinese guys. I don't even know who's a hall in the apartment in their kitchen. So the door opened right to the kitchen. And now, like for like 2 3 seconds, I was like to be sleepy. I didn't understand. And now after I realized what's going to happen, and I started to be super stressed. And what happened is I fixed the guy. The guy fixed me, but it fixed me in a way like they like didn't expect me to see me, you know. And so 2 or 3 seconds after, the someone's opened the door. And it was a guy that like rents me the apartment, and there was actually like just doing some kitchen, as just doing some like some we just like went to the supermarket and has had to like take one shisha, as I said. And so when I say that, I was like, but if I lose a big session and the bigger game, I could just come, but without the shisha, and just come, like I don't know, just like take my money and stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm out. So I left the country, and it was really funny because I had a message on Telegram. I don't think I can show it on the screen, but like basically I say to him like, never gonna come back. Like you can't just go to, if the place is mine, it's mine. You can't just go. enter the place while I'm sleeping, you know. And he said, "Oh, sorry, but we had to put things in the fridge." So he literally saved me this by message. What fun during this game. And I mean, he's nice. He's nice anyway, by the way. Yeah, and so that's the first thing first like live stuff I did. I went to like also many places, but not like very like big experiences. Because I was moving a lot, so I never like stayed like 2 or 3 months for a game. I played last year 5, 10, 20 in France. It went well, and I would say the bigger game I play was obviously this year in Asia. Can't say exactly where for obvious reasons. And I played there where I was partially backed, so I had like a percentage of my own action, and I was backed for like most of the money I put on the table. And the stakes were in dollar was 125, 250, 500, and we are playing with 100k stacks, basically. And very few time it was 51,000. I only played 51,000 once, but for like even few ends because the VIP left after. And the way the games work are like you have one VIP, and all other guys are pros. Most people are backed, and you just play for the VIP basically. But the problem is when I arrived, he was starting to get a little bit better. And at first, he was losing 20 to 30 millions per year, US dollar. And but he started to lose like way less and become way better. And when I came, he was actually very tight, and it was not the guy I thought it was. And so like I started the session, so I was there, I was alone, and but I didn't really know my backers. Obviously, they were really nice guy and professionals, but I didn't really know them. Just send me a message on Discord like, "You want to come?" And say, "Yeah, why not?" Just took the flight a few days after. Let's go for some adventures, you know, new art. And first day I play, and the VIP, the way he walked was like when you start, there is a new player in the game. He wants to like impress a little bit or like test you, you know? And so the one of the first thing I played was he opens UTG. I have a skin a free bet. We are playing around around like 100. I play 100 deep around that. And he 4-bet jump like in 2 seconds. And I knew like he was doing this to newcomers and that he will be a bit wider. So I call with ace king, and I have like ace king of spade. The board is um like 5 deuce 3 7 8 whatever with 3 clubs on the flop, 4 clubs on the river. And so he said to me, "Okay, you win." He like faked his mark and he returned ace 10 with 10 of club. I didn't have any club. The first 10 I lose. And so at the first session, I'm down like 80k or something. So I'm like, oh geez, it's not gonna be good. Second day, I bluffed way too much. So like I was not really adapting myself well enough. Just bluffed way too much. And I done like probably 80 or 90k. So I was done in 2 sessions, like 100,000, 70k dollars. So obviously my backers were not really happy, especially because I was not adapting myself well enough. But after it changed, I worked a lot on like how different profiles playing was the tell, the timing decisions, and I just like started working towards the same people over and over. And after it went really well, and yeah, I finished at in this game 496 k US dollar. So obviously it was my first like 6-figure months for me. Not gonna say how much I had, obviously. But yeah, it was a good experience. And I got a good run, and I played also I think really well. So it was a good experience. But it was really difficult again because, as we discussed a little bit, balance is important, and I did the same mistake as in Philippines. I was just like alone, and I was playing for like 14, 15 hours a day, sometimes even more. Um, I even played for one day. I played the second day. I did a rollover. Like I played for the full night and the day after. So I played for like I think 32, 33 hours straight. Never doing this. I will never do this again. It's just was terrible. Yeah. And but I was quite alone there, not too many friends, and obviously, like when I first came into the game, people knew who I was, so
were not happy that was into the game. So most people were not really nice. But yeah, it was at the end it was kind of fun, and it went really well actually. So that's cool.
So if I understood it correctly, these organizers of the game, they put you in the game, they organize the game for the VIP. The VIP kind of knows.
Yeah, so it's,
Oh,
so
but
he likes to
play. He likes to play, and people organize the game around him.
yeah, he's
So in terms of stakes, any I remember you talked about the sweaty hands on your mouse when you were making this training recording. Any sweaty hands in this session? Because I can imagine, if someone
yeah. I played
200K bots, even if if you sell action, it's a lot of money.
I mean, I still had a decent part of my action, so
Yeah,
it
so
was
even
still-
that as well. Yeah.
it was higher than 5,000 NL. But yeah, oh yeah, I got one pot the third day, so I was losing, and the way this type of contracts works is, you need to stay until you win, basically. If I simplify that, um, and so I play a spot where I have ace fourth club, UTG open. I free bet. We play 9 max. The VIP call, and the VIP was in general tight, but sometimes buzzing. It's his profile. It's very, very, very difficult. I obviously observed a lot of directional player. Very difficult to understand. It's very, very random when he's doing it. He's calling the button, and the UTG guy calls. Pre-way to the flop. The board is 10-4-3 with one club. UTG check. I decided to bet big here. But the reason is because if I bet bigger in this spot, I will represent way more of a person later streets, so I'm gonna have more full equity. People not gonna raise me, so I realize my equity, and I get folds directly by ends like 8, 9s and stuff. Anyway, I bet big, VIP call and UTG fold, so it's 10-4-3. I have ace 4 club, one club. Third is the 8 of club. Okay. We play very deep. We play 230 dips or something each. I usually to check. I think you can also play pressure, whatever. I check back. Turn is river is a 7 of club. So I have ace 4 of club and jack 9 of club and 7 and 9 I mean there's two straight flush in the ball basically. And I bet around 65%. I don't really like my side. I think half pot is a little bit better. 40%. Yeah, I bet around this. And he tanked for like 5 minutes, and he asked me to show one card. Asked me to show one card. I didn't really know what it means, but I was like, whatever. And now he put his this is the best sensation in the world. When people have a lot of chips, they have plaque. I don't know how to say it in English. Plaquettes.
Plaques, yeah.
He took his plaquette and he like puts them on the table like this. And she raised to 60K. And well, I raised 4 clubs, so I'm really happy. I don't want to store it that much, so I jump and he called quite fast, so I was like, he's not gonna have jack 9 of clubs. Come on, I'm gonna be down to like 300,000. And so he revealed when I jumped, he called and he had king 3 of club. No, he had king 5 of club, so he called with king 5 on the flop. And yeah, one of the spots was like 228K, so like super massive. Obviously, really happy. Like I did my first like 6-figure session, yeah. And after I left because I was tired. That was funny.
What are like some adjustments that you have to make when you go from an online game to a live game? And what do you think are like common mistakes that online players make when they go play live?
I think in a live environment, it's way more about players against players. So I will seek way more for reads I can have into a specific guy. I'm absolutely not gonna play balanced at all. If I don't play against, I play. You had him in the podcast. I play Kudinov, and a very nice guy by the way. And for example, we'll play a little bit more balanced against him because I don't want to start exploit wars with players and players that like knows me and that I know. So I will really base my game on who I'm facing. Okay, I'm gonna face someone, and he looks a little bit calling station as well. I'm probably going to bluff specific spots, but not that not too much actually. Let's say I play as a guy that was a bit nitty, or I put way more pressure. And in live games, what's really important to understand is like way more player against players. But again, the game I play was really different than most live games. And for example, in these games, there are less multi-way bots. because it was more like a pro game. But if you go to, let's say a more like normal game, you're gonna play multi-way bot close to all the time. This is the biggest difference. And it's a game that is way more based on the adaptation, taking notes on the players and doing very specific exploit on the other guy. And also you have way more elements to take into consideration. You have sizing, timing of decision. You have also tails. Don't overestimate live tail, of course, because the techniques of live is way more important than the tails things. Yeah.
Hmm. You also mentioned that you're dabbing around a little bit in the four card street. How's that been going?
In there?
In the four card no limit
Yeah, like so I started learning it last year, and now I'm like learning it more and more. It's the main format I'm playing right now, but I'm playing in private games online. And yeah, I actually really enjoy it. And I think for high stakes, it's kind of the future. I don't want to be like top pros battling and stuff. It's just like it doesn't. I'm not interested into that. I just want to exploit tricks better and just like make money out of this format. So I'm not playing very big now, but just play 10-20. It's actually big because it's PLO. But yeah, just want to train stuff to get better. And when I'm better, I'm just gonna play way higher. Yeah, I think the game is it's more fun. I think there's a very big difference between PLO 4 and PLO 5. And PLO 5 is it's more casino. But yeah, it's fun, and as I said it in earlier, I think you need to I personally needed to like develop YouTube channel, do coaching, do all the stuff to stay focused in the poker world because I can't do like fully poker every day full time anymore. So if I do all the formats, I know I will have more interest, will pick my interest again. And yeah. And so it's a great game.
How do you see the future of poker? We already talked a little bit about GG, and now you're mentioning, you're playing in like some nice private games live online. Is that kind of the future, and how does one become better at getting into private games? What are like some do's and don'ts?
Okay, so the first thing is about the future. For online, I think it's going to be dead for high stakes. I'm talking, and that's also why I did the transition. Obviously, I got some like insights on like what could happen on GG. I was not sure about. I just like meet one guy from the GG team who told me about that, but I didn't think it was going to be like that fast in terms of change, and I didn't thought it was going to be this. Well, tell me there will be like a little maybe they have thought about doing something like a little bit more like on the live scene. That's actually what I mean. Was doing more like private games. And the problem is if 5K plus for private games is like you can't make a living in 5K plus anymore. It's not like huge mistakes because you can still win a lot in 100 200 etc. But I think the way online need to evolve for players, they need to like seek more for good games. Can be like private games, can be clubs. Obviously, a lot of clubs are rigged, so you need to be careful. Or other sites, and just like choose more. What's the best place to play? Because we can talk about everything for the learning process, etc. If you play only with fishes and you don't work on your game, you're gonna win more than the reg that is the best of the site. So you need to select better the games you play, focus on the EV, and this is how the game will switch a little bit. Obviously, you can still win on normal sites, but if you want to like play more table and win more of the game, it's gonna be better to change sites. Like for example, actually, GG is like it's not really a good size to stay polite. And the problem is now they increased the rec. And I remember when I was playing there like 2 years ago at 1K, the rec was 5. Now it's 8. It's like it's really decreased the age you have and you win less and less. So it's better to like seek for the games, I would say. All live games. Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
so
the same-
that's probably indeed what people are gonna do, right? They're gonna try to find clubs again. The apps are gonna be booming again. They're gonna try to find, they're gonna go to this place in Asia and play with this guy who drops 20, 30 million. They're gonna go in the private game scene, or like some red flags when it comes down to. You already said, you have to be careful with the clubs. You have your experience in life,
Yep.
or like some red flags for the people out there, are now gonna try to find clubs, try to get into
Yeah,
some
so
private games.
I know every clubs, so obviously it's way easier for me to know what's rigged, what's not.
in Club GG and Poker Bros, etc., they had like some bots that were coding system that like are kind of now easy to detect because like the company that sells it is not in really into the poker world. So if you see a club with like few limits available and says there's like 1K, 400 NL, 600 NL, and you don't see one single player at the free table or like multi-tabling, just bots, basically. If you see players playing for like 600 ends at the same time for 10 hours straight, I chance it's a bot. And so you need to have like a trustful agent, I would say, trustful people for like the funds exchange. And you also need to like know the legitimacy of the clubs. Um, I only play on Club GG. I either play private clubs or public, but only very, very few public clubs you can play on. So just I will ask people, I will advise people to ask people that like have experience to these clubs, even if they want to ask me, they can, to really not lose, get rigged because getting rigged costs way more than playing two good games. And for the live games, the red flag, something I like to do, I'll say it even on the podcast, to know if the game is not rigged or rigged, I will always ask the guy to stack me 1%. So I will say to him, I will find an excuse. I will say I'm broke, whatever. Even the game is 2K NL. I will say I want to be stacked at 1% because my money is elsewhere. And if the guy is saying yes, it's a massive green flag because it means he agree that I'm not bringing liquidity to his game. And so the probability of this game to be rigged is way lower. Obviously, I can like lose, and after he can ask me the money, threaten me extra, it can happen, but the risk is way lower. And I received also with the Instagram growth I had, received a lot of opposition for parrot on live games. And sometimes I say to people, yeah, I can come, but you stack me or impressions. Oh, no response. Not saying the game was rigged, you know. But if the game is so good that you want me to be in, why you don't stack me instead of like taking me a few actions? And that's I think really good thing people can ask is like asking the host to stack them instead to be stacked again. Like if the guy is saying yes after I say, oh no, actually it's okay, I'll play with my own money. It's just that like if the owner accepts that we can bring a liquidity, you don't bring liquidity to the game, like it lower the chance, I would say. And for the question how to get invited to private games, I think you need to, it's a second relation. Like, what do you bring on the table? What am I useful for? So the goal is not to be like to fake fun with like VIPs and stuff. Like, just be yourself, be kind to people, and just being interested to people. For example, if I play at a table, the VIP is billionaire. Obviously, it's interesting, you know, like how he achieved this, what's the problem he has on the day, because it's a completely different world war. So the guy life is different. And if you are like interested to the guy, don't take it for a moron, and just respect other players. Obviously, you have way more chance to be invited or like be invited again. The second thing is obviously asking. I think not enough people ask. Just ask people. Let's say you see a guy losing a lot at your casinos. Just ask, let's he play some private games, and can you be invited into these games? And sometimes people underestimate what they can have. Is to just ask. And a lot of people ask me, how can I get to pride games? You didn't even ask. Ask them. Maybe you can come.
Good point,
you know?
actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we automatically assume like, yeah, well, I'm not welcome. Yeah,
And the face
you
ask.
don't ask.
I mean, for the owner, you're still one guy that can rake, you know? So, especially for live games where like the game environment still need people to rake. Like if he has 3 or 4 weaker players, he will still need people that rakes. Obviously, it's better to have frictional players because the extraction of liquidity will be less important. But you know, it can still be useful in a sense. And also, I think in the way you play, just like be just show you cards when they want, do big bluffs, just be fun to play with actually. And it's important to sacrifice some EVs, and do like sometimes very aggressive move, like just play the 7 juice like you did in the video, like just play the 7 juice with yourself, you know? And you just say to people, I play 7 juice. And you really play 7 juice. And so and you can even actually win money from this in live games if you see you too aggressive and you actually never bluff the 7 juice or whatever. But it's very important to change the way you play. And just be real with people. Like faking a behavior is not working, and it's not good. Like I don't want to see myself as like when I'm faking a behavior with a VIP, I'm feeling a little bit like
I don't have the right word. I want to say word, but it's not the word. But like I feel I'm not myself. See what I mean? I don't like it, and the guy will feel it anyway.
Yeah, when
So,
it's not authentic. I will add one from my own experience. Last time I was in Vegas, I randomly got invited to a private game as well. Don't piss off the owner of the game. That's gonna be my advice. I didn't know who hosted the game, man. Like, and I staked the guy twice, and apparently he was pissed, and I had to stand up and leave. Basically, while I actually, I was super active, and there were two guys that were fucking short stacking, and they literally one guy, he showed 3 times, he showed his hand, 3 times he showed aces. Get this fucking guy out of your game, and I was in there every hand, But I happened to own the owner of the game. I didn't know he was the owner of the game. So then I got a message from the guy who invited me. He said, "Yeah, when this round of stand up game ends, I'm sorry, I have to leave." So yeah, it was short fun. I was a bit tilted because seriously, man, there were 2 or 3 guys there. I'm like, get these guys out of the game. They were so annoying. The guy even slow rolled me with aces, motherfucker. Yeah, I was a bit pissed.
yeah,
But no, it was
definitely like make fun of the host.
sorry.
No, definitely like be nice with the host is a really good advice. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like I was not nice. I was just chatting with him, and but he was just apparently he was just a guy who tilts fast, and he lost 2 times. He lost his stack against me. Uh, uh, and actually, okay, there was actually one guy he understood. This was actually the guy who invited me to the game. He understood the politics, man. He literally the owner of the game. So I stack him. He got tilted. He just starts open jamming 10k. Okay, someone opens. So he's on my direct left. I'm ace king suited. Obviously, I flat because he's been jamming 10k. Then he gets angry. He said, "What do you think? I'm dumb." So he then folds because he got angry that I trapped him. When the hand ended up going open, I showed ace king, and he got angry at me for trapping him. You know. And then actually the guy who invited me, he actually thought he folded tens because he didn't want to be the guy that he would lose money to. That's like some next level understanding, like the dynamic
crazy.
of the game, right?
Yeah.
He was like,
That's-
"Oh yeah, I don't, I want to be out of your way. You're clearly steaming right now. He was open jamming 10k. Uh, I'm not gonna be the wacko who's trapping him with ace king because then I get kicked out of the game. Pretty smart move. Folding, he just folded tens.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Pretty sick.
Yeah, maybe I will get invited for GG games. Just like I don't know how it works.
You just send a message, and if you're down, so far from what I understood, you send a message, and if you're down, then they will accept you until Elkie sees that you're a pro. Hey, that's Joe Viral from this YouTube channel. Get him out of this game. It's I think so far how it works, but obviously it's quite a new change. We don't really have enough information yet. I want to quickly dive into you. You do a lot of you make content. You make content on YouTube, Instagram. You also do coaching. Coach for GTO Wizard. Shout out GTO Wizard, guys.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, in your experience working with player, what are like the most common leaks that you see in your coaching experience?
Mm, for live games, online games, both.
We can talk both.
Okay,
Some leaks that
people don't
overlap.
think enough about what they do. So like the other hand, they ask me, okay, what do you do? But it's like let's say I don't know how to say something in English, and I put the sentence in Google traduction, and I'm not even looking the sentence, or just barely looking at. They really think about, oh, how do we say that, or how can I say that? For example, like, do you will improve? But in poker is the same. Like too many players just like waiting for someone to answer the questions, whereas sometimes they can just answer the question by themselves, all this in a way that like will make them improve on the long run. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is too much like specific technical leaks that are linked to specific way of thinking. So let's say I am with a guy and he tells me, "Oh, I need to play this way, my value and my bluff," and I ask him why. Why can't you play your value in this size and your bluff in this size? What's the problem with that? And a lot of, especially for live games, have like this like theory leak, where they think that like, oh, okay, but if they do this this way, then it's not the way to do it. Like, there's a need to play it everywhere. It's actually not the case. Yep. And for more online, I think just not paying attention enough to details. So it can be timing or just like the sizing people do. Sometimes people to do 3/4, but it's not really 3/4, it's 82% because they just size up because they want more money, you know. And you can just fall when they do this,
The greedy
all these
people.
type of things. Yeah. And also like not having like a precise path of learning. And obviously for live people it's a bit more difficult. That's also why I like did the mentoring in the course I for live games. But yeah, just like follow something, follow one line, even if it's not the perfect one.
When you say like not a clear path of learning, do they like lack sort of a study plan? And how would
Yeah,
you recommend people to study and improve the game? Obviously, you know, people should go to GTO Wizard. We've already established that.
obviously GTO Wizard. Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
I think it's just could you maybe recommend like a study plan for our audience? That's basically what I'm saying.
um, it really depends on the league of each person. So like saying something optimal for everybody is not possible. But if I have to do my best, I would say always try to look at so train in the digital results, see where you do the most mistakes, and train only like spots that happen the most. So like single race spots, mobile against big line, free bet pots, etc. In online games. See where you are doing mistakes. Understand why you do these mistakes, and if you face something you don't know, or like you can learn from, or you did mistakes, just put them into the into notes, review them after the session of training you did, put them into the map, and just do it over and over again, and have the same mind map for all the notes you're taking. That's for GTO results. Also, you can like I think end reviews with like people that are better than you is probably the best. Construct your thinking first and see what the other guy is doing. And it can be okay. I watched a video. I say I watch one of your live play from your YouTube channel. I watch it, and I will ask myself before, okay, what do I do in his shoes? And it's a good way to learn because like obviously if I'm like playing lower stakes, I will learn a lot from your videos. So it's great to think myself what I'm gonna do because in average you're gonna play better, like 95% of the time, even more. And so doing this is great because it helps you having the habits of constructing your thinking process first, okay, and after seeing what the other guy is doing, and so you have these direct answers basically. Yeah.
And it's also unbiased because it's easy to hear me or you, for example, say something. Then, oh yeah, sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm.
Where would you have thought about that as well? Actually, something that I wanted to add when you talked about the coaching and you asked, okay, what would you do? And this is kind of what we talked about earlier. Like when you have a coach, try to really ask, like, okay, how did you come to that conclusion, or what type of variables did you take in consideration? Why did you make this play? You understand? Really try to understand, like, okay, what is his thought process, and what can I learn from how he got to his decision, instead of just asking him the answer, right? Also, in your observation, what sets students apart from the ones that succeed compared to the ones that fail?
Mm,
Why do people?
how is how deep they think in the play. Like I have my life course. I took 10 person in September, and so they have like access to one calls with me. And the one who performed the best is the one who thinks the most about the hands he play. Always. Like if I have a session with a guy and he send me a hand, he really thinks about it. He tells me, "Oh, I think we can play this way or this way, etc." I knew he will like improve the most and also be one
Because
of
he's
the best.
open, curious.
Yeah, he's open, curious, and he thinks about what he does. So if he thinks about what he does every single time, he build links. He build like neural links to just think faster and better to what he's doing. So he's gonna take better decision on the long run, rather than the guy just like playing a hand, but he's not really thinking deeply about it. Just like oh, my hand has to play this way and just play too strongly.
What prevents people from thinking deeply, do you think?
Um, Being lazy, I think.
Lazy.
Not lazy as a whole, but like lazy in the thinking process. Because it's an effort to think, you know? between like you can be on Wizard, just check the solution, or like understand like what you need to do before watching the solution. And the difference between these two is just the effort of doing it.
Yeah, again,
So
like if you see the solution and you look at it, then again you would say, oh yeah, that makes sense. But if you try before you open it, try to think, okay, I think this is going to happen. Let's see.
it's laziness, but the main thing is actually because people don't have the habits, they never develop the habits of deeply thinking into a hand. So if they don't have the habits, then they are going to post one hand. It's going to be the same. But if they want to learn because they don't have this habit of thinking deeply about what they do, like they're gonna do this mistake.
What do you think is overall? I think you already talked a little bit about good advice. What do you think is overall bad advice or the worst advice that you've been given in poker?
Mm, I think it's the two words you need. You need to call. You need to do this. You don't need to do anything. If you have second nature on to follow, I follow. If I think it's the best move and the most conservative move, yeah. So you don't need to do anything. You can do anything you want, but you don't have any obligation of like calling these, folding these. And too many players do the mistakes of, oh, I can't fold these. Yeah, you can fold this if you want to lose money, but like just like play the way you think is the best always. Uh, yeah, that's the worst thing I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, you need it. Definitely is also definitely a closer. If we talk about curiosity, creativity. Actually, I made a video the other day. 5 bad habits Tito has taught you. That one was in there as well. Way too much thinking about I have to instead of can I? Can I? That is interesting. Can I? Can I make this folder? Can I make
Exactly.
this call here? Because if you ask, can I make this call here? You think like, what? Can I make this call? Well, let me think. What is he bluffing with? Oh wait, there's no lot of bluffs. Maybe,
Nothing. Yeah.
maybe I cannot call here. But this like we laugh about it right now. But like the questions that you ask yourself, if you ask yourself, do I need to call this? Your brain is going to go to the solver output that you memorize with all the great techniques that Yolan has taught us today. It goes there and it's like, yes, it's a call, and you press call. But if you ask, can I call? Then you're giving your brain a completely different question. And then your brain says, okay, well, let me figure this out. Can I call? And then you'll come to a completely different conclusion. So yeah, great
Yeah, and
stuff.
take times when you play. Yeah, that will be the best advice. Like 10 seconds minimum per streets where like there are some decisions to do. Obviously, if you're Jack 5 ETG, like just fold. But let's say you're on the river, like I will take at least 30 seconds in all river spots. Yeah.
Adam,
But
Adam, I'm curious. What kind of impact do you think these questions or these constant things that we kind of engrave in ourselves, this decision making process, what kind of consequence does it have to our decisions?
Yeah, well, as you guys have touched on, the power of the questions you ask lead to the quality of your decisions. So if you're sloppy with your questioning or you brush over it, you're going to get sloppy answers. And yeah, I think it's very interesting, as you said there, Yolan, that the best players think more. And it's such a simple thing, but it's like, okay, why don't people think more? And as you mentioned, again, it was like because it costs energy. It's draining. It's tiring. I think if you've got curiosity, curiosity is like free energy. It's like free energy. It's like, oh,
Completely.
this is awesome. Whereas when you haven't got curiosity, you're like, oh, got to think about this. And also humans, we like shortcuts. We like going, give me the simplified version so I can understand. So yeah, I think as you're touching on there, like the importance of asking questions. I think as you were talking about organizing information earlier in the conversation, you were going through a set of questions to ask yourself. So yeah, I think there's no real substitute for good questions. If you haven't got those, the mind's actually very amazing at finding answers to good questions. So if you give the mind a question, the mind goes to work to answer that question. If you don't give it a question or you give it a bad question, the mind will also either fill in the blank or answer the bad questions. It's like, how do I give my mind good questions? What are some good questions for this situation? I think that's a very a good starting point to ask yourself, because sometimes we're like, okay, well, I would ask myself good questions, but if you break down a situation, what would be some good questions? I started coming with those. I think is very important. Then you mentioned as well, making it habitual. You got to make it the habit of going a bit deeper, the habit of asking a certain question until it gets ingrained. Any habit to begin with takes time. It takes almost like overcome resistance of the old habits to form the new. But once you form it, then all of a sudden it creates momentum and it gets ingrained. So yeah, so many things to dive into there, but I want to be respectful of your time, Yolan. I've got a few like kind of signature questions and reflection stuff, so we'll go into this now. So first of all, I want to look back on your puck career and kind of think of some lessons you've learned. So you came in from a few different angles. Obviously, you overlap with the memory stuff that we've talked about. But what do you think is the most important lesson that you've learned on your poker journey?
Mm, I think you need to enjoy what you do. You need to enjoy the process. You need not to put too much pressure on yourself, and don't think that like sacrifices will make you a better person. It's the three main thing I would say.
Mm. What would you say to players who maybe have strayed off that path and they're in sacrifice mode, but they haven't really got the success in the short term? So it feels like they can't ease off. I've always found myself like when I get to a certain level of stuff or a certain amount of success, it's like, oh yeah, of course, balance makes a lot of sense now. But when you're on the journey to kind of grind to a result, sometimes you struggle to see that perspective. So what would you say to players who
I
are in the
think
trenches right now?
the definition I have for sacrifice is like prioritize things that are less important. Um, so let's say I have like my top three health, relationship, poker. But what I did was like I put poker way over the two other one. And this is not what I should do. And but when I say sacrifice, doesn't mean you're not gonna put time in poker. Obviously, you need to put a lot of time and effort into the game. It's important. Um, but yeah, just it's important to put the effort, but at the same time, value also the two other important things. One, that's the main thing I'm saying. Yeah, but obviously you need dedication. You need to put a lot of time. As I watched over 1,000 videos. I don't know how many hands I reviewed. And but this was part of the process, and I enjoyed doing it, and I enjoyed putting effort into it, and that's the most important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like don't make the wrong sacrifices. Don't sacrifice the things that are more important for the thing that's maybe less important, even though it feels like it. So generally, health relationships are going to go above kind of financial and achievement goals. And if they're out of alignment, I think in the short term, it doesn't really matter. Like I always feel like a week of hardcoreness, a month of just crushing stuff and not prioritizing your health and stuff is fine in small seasons. But it's like as you mentioned, like understand the bigger picture. Like you always reflect every single day to go, am I getting out of line here? Am I out of balance in terms of what I should be prioritizing? If that goes on too long, that's when you need to get back in balance. All right. So I want to know in terms of any false assumptions that you had coming into poker, maybe about poker or what its success would look like, that turned out to be wrong.
Mm, yeah, I felt like I'll do poker all my life, like playing poker all my life, obviously. But it's the beginning, so it's kind of like a relationship with a person, You fall in love with the game, so you fall in love with the person. Like, when I'm gonna stay 30 years, No, it's not gonna happen. And yeah, what else? Um, mm, yeah, I felt um I felt like I could succeed alone, but as we discussed at the beginning, you know, culturally, and I just felt that when I will be asexual, I will not do anything else in my life, and I understood that now my happiness is coming more from like being more balanced. Obviously, now I play way less, and I mean with the 5K being that I cannot even play it that much online, so I play way less these days, and it's fine. Just it's okay not to because when I started poker, I wanted to be the best in the world, and now I'm not considering myself the best in the world in the like game, like playing the game aspect. Um, and and it's okay. Just accepting that sometimes you don't succeed in your goal, and the goals are here to make you a better person. They're not here to be achieved. So if I achieve that, that's super. But yeah, and understand that you can change things you want, and it's okay. And sometimes you even for someone that let's say someone wants to be pro or someone to be really want to be in poker and is very attached to this. But yes, sometimes the the best moment is to leave. And if I didn't succeed in poker and I don't know, I trained for like 4 or 5 years, really at my maximum capacity without any result, yeah, probably will leave. If I'm really at maximum, and I really want to be the best. And it's okay to have different goals sometimes and different things we want to do.
Mm. It goes back to the advice I think a coach gave you to say if you try all out and fail, it's
Yeah.
fine. It can be full effort. And yeah, interesting. As you mentioned, you initially had the goal to be the best in the world at poker. And as you've evolved, that goal's maybe changed a bit. How has your definition of success changed and the way you align goals? How's that changed for your success?
Mm, well, obviously, I talked a lot about sacrifice. The way I learned the game was through like I didn't win for 2 years. I put a lot of hours into it. It was kind of through pain actually. And so right now I want to deviate a little bit more about, oh, okay, if I'm balanced, if I have a person in my life, or if I have good relation with my friends and with my families, I know that it will help me to get closer to the success, because I'm not gonna have these parasite thoughts of like, oh, I need to get a girlfriend, like, oh, I'm alone in my life full of moments, or like, oh, my relationship is not that great, or like, I need to improve my health. I don't want these thoughts. So if I don't have these thoughts, because like everything is on the roads, I would say I will have all the time and effectiveness to achieve my goals and be happy about it. Yeah.
Mm. It's almost like getting that alignment and getting everything in sync. I think often we waste a lot of time on the things we could be doing, and this kind of conflicting thoughts often like deviates our attention and energy. So yeah, it sounds like getting that kind of that clarity of what you want to achieve and get everything kind of streamlined in the right direction, so you're not like in conflict with yourself.
And I think it's important to be kind with yourself. It's what my mental coach told me. Is like, I did these mistakes, but back in the days I thought was the best to do. And maybe actually it was the best to do. And I said, don't do sacrifice. But if I would not do this, if I wouldn't have done this, I will not be there. But um, I think it's important to be kind with yourself with the mistakes you're doing, the bigger mistakes you do, the smaller mistakes you do. Just like, remember, we're humans, and it's just normal not to be perfect. And I got also this problem with the like, I wanted everything to be perfect. So the studies, even sometimes the videos, like people ask me, why don't you publish more videos? But sometimes it's because I really want the subtitles, the cut, etc. to be perfect. But I already have like 30 rush I can do. So yeah, just understand that like, well, I'm never gonna be perfect anyway, and for all the like project I have, just um, and it can be like ice stakes poker for live games, because I still want to invest a lot of time into to playing live poker, or it can be anything else. Just like enjoy the process and understand that things can take times. Okay.
Mm. Yeah, self-compassion, I think, goes into that, like kind of being kind to yourself. And it kind of goes on the end of, it's like the middle point of two spectrums where it's you're too hard on yourself and you're the workaholic who just beats himself and is always maybe a perfectionist, wants to do everything right. Then you've got the person who doesn't really care too much, like really easy on themselves. Like, yeah, it's no big deal. And the self-compassion like is in the middle where you're like, you're a realist. You understand that, okay, like made mistakes, you accept them, but you're also kind to yourself and you're nice to yourself in those ways. I think it's really hard to strike that balance because most people go, too far one way or too far the other. And I think it's trying to find for yourself, if you're a perfectionist in general, you're going to be overly hard on yourself and learning more self compassion, being kind to yourself, accepting of your frailties often will get you back closer to that kind of that optimal point. Now, there's going to be a lot of people listening to this who are very curious about memory right now and go, right, I want to actually work on my memory. And it's going to take people in very various directions on YouTube and ChatGPT to find out some directions. So, as a poker player, based on what you've learned, what do you feel like are some important, maybe mindset skills, sorry, memory skills or memory techniques that would be useful for poker players to start working on?
It's very difficult to say to someone like, okay, you will do this and you will improve your memory, because I know sometimes it's not doable. And I coach some professional poker players to improve their memory, and Andre also did it. My friend was a world memory champion for 4 years. And the thing is, it takes so much time, and sometimes it's not worth it, because it's better to work on the things that directly that you can see directly on your screen for poker. So I'll recommend like a 20/80 approach where like you work on the 20% that will bring 80% of results. And for that, I will advise people to first, as you said, organize, okay, prioritize, simplify, and just put it into a map. And if they do this consistently, and again, it's very simple. It's only 4 steps. You're gonna like have way better results than other people simply because the information retention will be higher. And yes, obviously the best after will be to go to Anki and do it every day, etc. I think this that's the best. But if you have all the information you learn into 1 or 2 or 3 different mind map and everything is centered, you're going to improve the way you memorize things way better. And there's no like very, insane techniques, etc. Obviously, there are some techniques I use, but I know that like for poker players, it will take too much time to implement for it to be worth. If he doesn't have the interest that I had for memory, just as a skill and as a fun thing to do. That's right.
Perfect. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I think it comes down to understanding how we learn and what is actually useful for all of us. And as you mentioned, that kind of organizing, prioritizing, simplifying, and then creating a visual, regardless of what you're trying to learn, that kind of works very well for our brains to be able to retain information and learn well. Obviously, techniques on top that you might want to add if it's your interest. But yeah, I think it's really good to know what actually can we all be doing more of. Myself, from this conversation, I'm like, I read a lot of books, but I sometimes don't simplify it at the end. I sometimes don't write the bullet points that I've learned from that book. Got loads of notes, and I'm like, will I actually learn those things, or should I just condense it to something simpler so I can actually learn that going forward? Also, creating visuals. I'm a very visual learner, but sometimes I don't create visual mind maps of the knowledge I've learned, so it just slips by and it goes out of my mind. So yeah, it's good to kind of remember this kind of stuff, but to actually take action and create some kind of systems for information, which I think is very useful. All right, looking back on your poker career, which part of your poker career was most enjoyable for you, and why do you think that was the case?
I think it was definitely when I started, like when I was stuck and I started winning money, because it was really the moment where I got the results of the work I did, and so you see your role like growing way more than like after, obviously, in terms of percentage. It was clearly the best moment. I really loved poker. I was waking super early to play through the whole day, and it was not even feeling like sacrifice. It was just I just wanted to play all the time. And I think this was clearly the best one of the best moments. And I started playing live like in Switzerland, so it was nice. Yeah, but definitely this moment, like when you first start to see the results coming, is the most fun part, I would say. Also, the 5K NL adventure was always kind of nice, especially when I started in the game like 2022. I was like 21 or something. So yeah, and it was a good thing to, because I always wanted to be like the youngest text player poker in the world. Like I always had this goal also, and yeah, it was fun to do him.
Mm. Yeah, I think there's an innate drive to have growth or progress in what we do, and we work hard at something. At some point, we want to see the reward for that. It's like, all the way I put in, it was worth something. It was worth the end points. And if you're currently haven't seen the results, it's like just keep holding on to the. If I keep doing the work, at some point I will get the end result I want, and that will be worth it. And I think that's. I know for myself, I always need some form of making progress in what I'm doing to make what I'm doing feel worthwhile, but also enjoyable. So yeah, I could definitely relate to that one.
Mm.
You've recently transitioned into like business and doing more content and coaching. What would you say is a poker skill that you found most useful to help you transition from poker to business overall?
Oh, decision process by far. Or just having like a more clear decision process. Um, like assessing the EVs to scenarios that are the most probable. Um, like taking into account benefits, advantage. Like we have like as a poker player, huge advantage or to other players because we took so much decisions that even if decisions were different, we are actually able to make them way faster in real life, and that's clearly the most important thing for me.
Nice. Are there any resources or books that you've read on your journey that have helped you to create a better
I
decision
wrote
making?
a book that helped me a lot in my mental games. A book by Peter Clark. I don't Peter, I think. I don't remember the name of I think, yeah, it was poker therapy or something.
Yeah.
It really helped me a lot because I always got this leak sometimes of like, oh, I'm gonna get exploited, so I need to like do this, and it cost me a lot of EVs. And this book helped me to understand what was my leak and how to fix it. And yeah, so shout out to Peter because she's doing an amazing work for that. And yeah, this in terms of books and in terms of content, um, I don't think I have like someone precise. Redman helped me a little bit. I was watching Rene. You were doing videos in 2020, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was clearly watching you a little bit also. Some French players like Memorization, but not very known, I think. In the English worlds. Uh, yep, some YouTube channel definitely, but not like one bigger than the others, I would say.
Yeah, good stuff. There's a book I read recently called Clear Thinking by Shane Parrish. That's also very good for going through decision-making processes and how to think through complicated decisions, which aren't always easy, like life choices. What is the
Mm.
EV of me going down this path in my life, choosing this avenue, becoming a poker player over starting a different job, and really thinking through a process of how to make good decisions? Because it's all well and good for us to be saying, okay, let's make good decisions, let's think more, but we also need we need a framework for that, and we need to learn frameworks or develop them over time, which you've obviously done a great job of. All right, I want to end this conversation with asking you, what would you like the main takeaway for the audience to take away from today's conversation?
Mm, I would say be genuinely interested to poker, what you learn. Um, Try to always think about what's the best action in poker in life. Enjoy what you're doing, and just get help with other to improve in each aspect. And also just remember, like poker and professional life is just a life among the all of the life you can live. I mean, all the aspects of your life basically, and that it's important, but all the other aspects are also important, I would say.
There's a bigger game of life going on, which includes
Exactly.
the whole thing. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great conversation. And yeah, we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, thanks you too, guys.
Thank you, Yolan, for coming on the pod, sharing this wisdom with us and our listeners. Adam, any main takeaways?
Well, based on today's conversation, I need to organize my notes and simplify, but I'll do my best in this moment. And one thing that came out a lot was enjoyment and curiosity for what you're learning, and how, yes, you can have all these memory techniques, but if you're not curious and enjoy what you're doing, you're always going to underperform or not put the effort in needed to get to the long-term goals. So really tapping into that curiosity and finding ways to be learning from a space of wanting to learn, which then goes into his next one, which is like kind of going deep, asking yourself, why is this happening? He mentioned lots of different contexts. From a mindset perspective, he was looking at losing and making mistakes, and then ask himself, what could I do differently here? What am I missing? Always like that layer of depth different. And he mentioned like the best students of his are the ones who think more. And that sounds like a very easy thing to achieve, but thinking more requires going deeper, asking questions, and kind of solidifying your knowledge. He did talk a lot about questions that we ask ourselves and having a good thought process in terms of organizing your thoughts, or in terms of remembering stuff. I wrote down, organize your thoughts, simplify your thoughts, associate with stuff, so create some sort of association with things that you're learning, and then create some sort of visual representation. You mentioned how we can remember, I think, 150 words, I think this is the world record, 150 words, but 600 images. So that's like a massive discrepancy in terms of how our minds are wired towards the visual. So trying to tap into that, leverage that, I think is a very important one. He talked a lot about not sacrificing too much. I think the key lesson here was don't sacrifice the most important things, which were health, relationships. Yeah, so many things that could dive into here, but yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. How about yourself, Rene? What's the most important lessons you learned?
Yeah, I mean, my memory is letting me down here after a 3-hour conversation, which actually taps into the first point: respect the limitations of the brain, right? It wasn't all about turning your brain into this supercomputer. No, it was actually respecting its limitations. And it was more brain hacking than necessarily brain in performance enhancing, right? He, for example, mentioned in solvers and in general, when you study things, try to really prioritize, okay, what's the most important thing, and forget about the rest. He talked about don't try to memorize if something was done with a 30% frequency. It's like, remember the things that we're always doing something, never doing something, and the rest somewhere in the middle, right? Give it 50-50. He said don't put anything more into it. We talked a lot about asking good questions, right? And there was a bunch of questions. What does your hand here want to do? He kept on coming back to. What's my opponent's range we can deck to? He mentioned the one that I always use. Where should my value come from? And it all come back to thinking, something that you also pointed out, and gathering information, right? He was really a puzzle solver, and we talked a lot about theory. MDA said, yeah, it can all add, but we should never stop thinking in game. Gather information about this range. I really liked also what he actually talked about. Coolers. It's very easy to, when you have a set, or he gave the example when you have kings, the guy says cooler and just not think about it. But is it really cooler? And then he came, for the people maybe also listen back, he made it quite a long ramble, but he talked a lot about the EV discrepancy, and basically what it came down to is how I would simplify that for myself. What is the best scenario? What's my EV in the best case scenario? What's my EV in the worst case scenario? And you will see that in a lot of situations. In best case scenario, you're trying to find enough combos to make your call break even / slightly winning. But in worst case scenario, he's just massively underbluffing and you're losing a lot of money. So basically, if 1 out of 10 guys, you lose 10 BB with your call, and the rest you win 0.5, well, then you still cannot call. That's basically what he said, because then on average you will lose 5 big blinds. Now, you can make the call versus those guys and really filter out that one guy. I usually like to say that the skill in poker is being able to dodge bullets. So who's like the big nit in the game, and not pay that guy off. That's very important. He also talked a lot about smart work, not necessarily hard work. Get coaching, study high EV spots, right? Make good notes of that. All stuff that he talked about. And a very important one, not thinking about have to, right? I think that's what he said. Worst advice giving, or worst habit that players have when they think about have to. I have to do all these things. He said, no, you don't have to do anything. And then we changed it to can I, which is a way more curious question. In general, we talked a little bit about the questions that you ask yourself. Well, can I actually call her? Can I actually fold here? And that will steer you in a completely different direction. It comes back to the asking good questions. And when you then go can I, there was another thing that he kept coming back to. Take your time. Take your time. I think he said that he took 30 seconds for every river decision. So yeah, I mean, I wrote down a bunch more stuff, but let's wrap it up. Probably already too much main takeaways for what he said our brain can handle. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I want to thank Adam. I want to thank our sponsor, GTO Wizard. I want to thank Yolan again for coming on. And remember, if you want to work with me and Adam and have us help you make more progress in your poker career, mechanicsofpoker.com coaching program, go over to the site or in the link in the description down below. If you liked this podcast, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.